Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Friday, everybody. Hopefully it's off to a good start. Thanks for joining me. We're gonna be doing live readings this evening on the channel. So if you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I work both with tarot as well as Western astrology, and we alternate every other weekend. We're going to be doing live readings this evening. It'll be astrology. If you want to get a reading, here's how you do it. There's a QR code right here. You can scan that. It'll take you directly to my PayPal where you can make a donation. We're going to be asking for a donation of $50 for one reading. You can ask about a particular aspect in your natal chart, or if you have a question about a situation or something going on currently, please be specific. It's very, very, very important that when you make your donation, you include all of this information. You'll probably see it going across the bottom of the screen. There's a little banner down there. We need to know your first name, if it differs, especially from your YouTube name, your exact time, date, location of birth. So I need that AM and PM. Please spell the month out for me because I'm here in the United States, so it might be a different format than where you are. And give me the city and the state, and then let me know your question. If your guys' name differs from PayPal versus YouTube, let me know as well throughout the readings this evening, because it can go kind of long. I'll be updating you guys and letting you guys know who else we have left on the list. Just shoot me a message on the chat and let me know if you've made a donation, and I'll make sure that you guys are in the queue. We've got a number of people who are already there. What's up, Amy? Hey, Melissa. Hey, Sarah. I got you. Hey, Sin. Deborah. Welcome, Luke. What's up, Rome? I got you for sure. David's in the house. Hey, Katie. Sonia. Mr. Theron. Yeah. What's up, Collins? How's it going? There's a lot of regulars and some new faces here, too. We're always here every Friday night, most every Friday night. You're going to find me at 5 Pacific time, PM, 8 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, you might have to adjust your time zone depending on where you are, but this is where some of us like to hang out and kind of get a crack on the weekend. We've got a full moon coming up really soon, actually on the 7th. This is going to be the last weekend reading before we have this next full moon. It gets kind of wonky like the next 2 weeks. We have a lot of mutable squares involving that Mars finally coming out of shadow in Gemini, and a ton of planets moving through Pisces. We're really kind of at like the last stretch before we get into the second half of March. New moon in Aries. We're going to have the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere. We have got eclipses coming in April. It's like a very slow start to the beginning of 2023, but it's like from the end of March all the way through May, it's like a bang. So the energy is going to shift pretty significantly. If you guys haven't already seen some of my reports that I've been putting out, not everybody has seen my 2022. I don't know if you guys know, but I did a 5-hour show for New Year's that was all on the biggest transits of 2022. I talk about all of the major planetary ingresses, Saturn, Pluto, the nodal shifts, for all of the 12 signs. If you guys go to my video list, you can catch that. The time codes are all there. So if you just want to know about what I have to say about Saturn or about Pluto, or if you just want to listen for your rising sign, lots of good information in there. But we also break it down throughout the week and give you guys some heads up. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. And you guys can also support my channel if you want to leave donations. Readings is a great way to support my channel. I also have memberships. So if you guys want to, there's 3 different levels. Level 1 is just a donation. Level 2, you're going to get a shout out. And level 3, you're going to get a reading once a month. So that's what's cool about being level 3. We take level 3 subscribers first. And you guys are going to make sure that you get a reading every single month. It's your choice, whichever tarot or astrology. And it's a great way to help me keep making content. When we started up almost a year and a half ago, I had like 1,500 subscribers, and now we're getting close to 15,000. So it's just like crazy how much this has grown. So the more support I have, it makes it a lot easier for me to create this long format content for you guys. And my goal is to also start creating new educational content. Many of you guys know I teach astrology. I also teach tarot. I'm in the middle of teaching my Astro 201 level right now, but I want to be able to create more content. So but with your guys' support and joining memberships, you guys make it possible for me to do that, including I've been putting out some free webinars here and there. So you guys will get some good stuff if you support. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. Welcome to level 2. All right, so let's get on with the show. Let me let you guys know who I've got. We're going to be taking Sarah first for my level 3 subscribers. Is there anybody else here that's level 3 that wants to get their reading? Let me know. Let me know. Okay, so here is the long list. And I have to ask, is Lynn here? I don't know if this is somebody who wanted a reading or if it was a donation, because there's nothing in the memo, but is there a Lynn here that wanted to get a reading? Besides Lynn, I've got Amy, Fatima, Rome, Collins, Heather, SR, Yellow Flower Tarot, Gloria, and Lucas. You guys are all here. Usually if you're like on deck, I'll let you know if you're within like 3 people. So you guys can relax, grab snacks, do whatever it is that you want to do. Or if you just want to hang out and you want to listen to other people's readings, you can do that too. This is a great way to learn. SR says, you've been liking the courses. I'm glad you like it. I'm happy to be back teaching astrology. It's something I really enjoy doing. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with Sarah. What's up, Sarah? I saw you up there. And I've got your info. Anything in particular you want to ask me about in regards to your reading, let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to give a shout out to all my level 2 and 3 people. You guys are the best. Every time I look at this list, it gets longer and longer. So I have to give you guys a big thank you. Stephanie, Deanna, Charlie, Deb Stav, The Mystic Road, Barbara, Penny, Steve, Paula, Sarah M, Maui, Catherine Murray, Claudia, Tiara, Angela, Willow, Emma, Susan, Taliba is here, Jackie, Hera, Nancy, Jessica Martinez, and Susan Wexler. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys for supporting Beyond the Veil YouTube. You're the best. And then we'll hop on, we'll talk to Sarah and see what Sarah has to say. And then in terms of who I have on deck, sometimes my PayPal has a bit of a delay, guys, sorry. We're gonna have, if we don't hear from Lynn, Amy and Fatima. So let me know, otherwise I'm gonna tell you what I see, Sarah. I've been following your story the last couple of months with the back and forth with somebody who's in another country, trying to figure that out. And I think it's quite very much connected to that Mars retrograde in your 7th. Once we get Mars like north of about 26 degrees, we're going to be out of the Mars retrograde shadow. So it's going to kind of go off with a bang. There's going to be a lot of squares. For you, that's been materializing is the squares back and forth to Neptune, you know? So there's been a lot back and forth with where am I living? Where do other people live? What's going on with my relationships? That kind of stuff. Something else that's really important being a Sag rising, Sarah, is that you've also got Jupiter now picking up steam. The last couple days, it's actually been in conjunction to Venus. So I don't know how you're feeling with that conjunction, but for a Sag rising, pretty romantic if you ask me. Lots of opportunity also for creative energy. And we're going to see Jupiter just kind of push through Aries pretty quickly because it spent a period of time in Aries last year. So come mid-May, it's moving into the sign of Taurus. It'll still hang out in your 5th house for a little bit, but it's shifting into your 6th, and that's going to bring more attention to health, work, daily routine, getting your chores done, really focusing on staying busy. And it will also be your Jupiter return. And I know I've brought that up, but I'm just letting you know between Uranus coming back into conjunction with your natal Jupiter in the 6th house, it's getting ready to drum up changes in, I think, your work routine and also possibly giving you sudden opportunities for travel, maybe having work with people in other countries or in other places. The other thing I would say is like, don't make any big decisions in regards to relationships or home really until you get to the 2nd half of March. because we're going to see this grand conjunction. Has anybody else seen this triple conjunction in Pisces that's coming, or is it just me that's like, what the heck is this? I'm dedicating a whole video to it, but we're going to see the Sun, Mercury, and Neptune are all going to be at 25 degrees at one point. It'll be on the 16th of March. Being that that is going to create pretty much a grand mutable cross in your chart, it'll be building really like the first week of March into mid-March. It's going to be creating that mutable square in angular houses, right? The 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th. And this is like the points of the chart that are very sensitive, where when you experience a square, especially a grand square, all 4 of those areas are kind of forced to change. Now, thankfully, Sagittarius, Pisces, Gemini, right, Virgo, they are mutable signs, so they handle change a little bit better. But this is kind of wild for you, having planets on your North Node saying, focus on dreaming, focus on manifestation, focus on your intuition. And then you've got planets that are moving through, or a planet, Mars, moving through your 7th house, which is squaring the nodes saying we need to take action in relationships to definitively make changes in your home space and also within your career. So this is a very interesting time. I think every single time you've seen Mars since the fall of 2022 moving through Gemini within these degrees, there is very karmic, fateful things that happen, and like relationships or partners or even clients, people show up that change the direction of where your life is going. So underestimated. Maybe it's just me. My background is in evolutionary astrology, so I love a good square to the nodes. I also get really excited when I see planets on the North Node and a square. So I'm anticipating this is going to materialize as some pretty big dreams in regards to what the future of your home life could look like, potentially toying with the idea of a foreigner coming to live with you, you going to live with someone else in another place, and how that is also going to materialize as rapid changes in relationships because you've got Mars in your 7th house. Then you're going to have a Jupiter return. And so for women especially, Jupiter returns can be really prominent because Jupiter can be seen sometimes as the husband in the natal chart. And also Mercury is the ruler of your 7th. So we've seen Mars coming into conjunction with Mercury. For a Sag rising chart, the whole sign 5th house ruler is Mars. So it's about true love and communicating what you're willing to do, or what changes they're willing to make. Or what actions they're willing to take to kind of maybe give you more clarity in regards to better defining your home life. So really, really interesting squares. Some Scorpio risings, if you're like a mid to late degree Scorpio rising, some of you guys are also going through this transit. So definitely challenging because there can be lots of room for error and miscommunication and misunderstandings. But I think that if you're really leaning into that North Node in Pisces, which is, I imagine our home will look like this. I imagine our relationship would play out this way. And then you let other people take the lead with that Mars in your 7th. You could see some very, very magical things start to transpire. You've seen a number of my readings before. And you know that I'm generally pretty kind of like direct and blunt with stuff. But I look at some of the transits coming next year, as you have your Jupiter return this summer, and then Jupiter is going to move into Gemini next year. It's going to hit your sun, and then it's going to go into Gemini. And I think when you have transits going into your 7th house next year, you may seriously be thinking about settling down, getting engaged, getting married. There's something like that that might go down there, like especially with Jupiter coming into conjunction with Juno, especially with Saturn coming and sitting on your North Node. There is a sense of like wanting to define home and family a little bit more seriously, but you have all this sweetness that's coming in through some of the transits with your 7th house. One other thing that I would say is just really pay attention to the retrograde that we're going to be having. There's going to be a retrograde in Taurus, a Mercury retrograde. And that's going to be right around the time of an eclipse. So there's definitely be a lot of like reorganizing, restructuring your schedule, reworking things in regards to a relationship. But the nice thing is for the next 2 years, you have Saturn that's on your North Node. So it's helping you really define your future. Some people get freaked out about Saturn transits, and I guess I understand that, but I, for one, have really enjoyed Saturn on my North Node. I've had that this last year. I feel like there was like this, every time I got within like 3 or 4 degrees, I was like, oh, some breakthrough is coming, some big thing is gonna happen. And it's not been anything like huge, but it's definitely been some definitive things in terms of what my North Node is about. Pisces is a little bit more sensitive and empathic and psychic, and there is a need to also like ground yourself better and like literally build your dreams. So I think a lot of it's going to be about communication, learning how to communicate what you need in relationships, especially in regards to home or family. And it's going to be in your 4th house. So it might mean that you're like, I want to buy a house. I want to build, a solid structure, with somebody else because of the squares to the nodes. So have all those discussions this year. I kind of see 2023 as like a leap year. Not that we're not going to have big planetary transits. I mean, we are. Saturn's changing signs, Pluto's changing signs, but next year, when we start to see Jupiter and Uranus come together, we start to see Saturn sextile Uranus. It's lots of big moments next year for a lot of people. So this is kind of the kind of beginning phase, the exploratory phase of what would it look like if we kind of built a life together. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Keep me updated, keep me informed. Thanks, Katie. I got you. Hey, Charlie. Thank you. I appreciate it. What's up, Alana? Hey, Sonia. How's it going? Let me update this. So we'll probably leave this up for like another maybe like 10-15 minutes if you guys want to sign up. I got Lucas, I got Katie, I got Alana, and Wendy snuck in there. What's up, Wendy? What's going on? All right, so let me come back to my list. I'm gonna keep asking, is Lynn here? I think it was just a donation. I don't even think she's here for a reading, but I just wanna make sure. All right, so we've got Amy that we're gonna take next, and then we'll do Fatima and Rome. So funny, I was thinking about you today, Wendy. I was thinking Botox, and I was like, what transits? And then you like popped into my mind, and I was like, I should be asking you. I give you the dates. All right, Amy, let me pull up your chart. Gotta wait until Pluto's not in a square with Venus, though, you know? I was like looking at the transits being like, there's only certain days. All right, let's find Amy. And that was Amy H. There we go. All right, so let's see what Amy said. I have the opportunity to buy with a partner my place of business. I work in a salon in South Minneapolis. Does it make financial sense to buy the business? Pluto is opposing my moon, and I have a grand fixed cross hitting soon. Some other crazy stuff hitting in the summer. We're just starting the loan process. If so, when is an official date to take over the business? Keeping in mind, I have plans for the future to open my own brick and mortar crystal healing shop. All right. I'll be a silent owner in the salon. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's take a look and let's see. So we've got you here, Aries rising, sun in Capricorn, moon in Leo. Okay, so Saturn rules your 10th house of career, and the 7th house is about partners, okay? So do you mind me asking their birthday? Kind of interesting what you got going on here. So Jupiter's on your ascendant. So there's a sense of being like super optimistic about new beginnings and new opportunities and just like fresh starts. As Jupiter comes into Aries, it's automatically opposing your Pluto and squaring your 10th house. Jupiter magnifies. So Jupiter, even though it's really positive and it wants to start something, it's opposing Pluto. So there is a sense of being like, are we going to be on the same page? Are we both putting up the same amount of money? Do we have the same, interests? Are we both going to be able to kind of cover costs? Like, these are things that I would think about. With your reverse nodal return, so if you see in your 7th house transiting south node is coming into conjunction with your north node, theoretically, whether it's now or into the next year or so, as that south node swings through your 7th house, I'm not going to say you can't partner with people, because you can when there's a node in the 7th house, but that's not the focus. So if it's somebody who you worked with in the past, or somebody who you've talked about this in the past and now you guys are bringing it up again, I would pay attention to that. Having somebody who's, either, it doesn't matter if they're an Aries or if they're an early Taurus, they're going to be in your 1st house. I would wonder what degree their sun is. I would look into that. I also think with Jupiter square Mercury and the sun, there is this sense of like, yes, let's initiate something, but I don't want to be the one to run everything, right? And you are actually really great at being a boss because you have that sun Mercury in the 10th. I think that you've been reevaluating what changes you want to make in your career for the last several years. If you made it out of those Saturn transits and you're still standing, and the Pluto transits too, good for you. Jupiter is getting ready to come into Taurus. And so Jupiter going into Taurus is really great if you have an Aries rising, because Taurus can be about beauty, right? And the beauty industry. And it's going to trine all your stuff in this next year. So it's going to trine your Mars. It's been trining your Mars. It's going to trine Mercury and also the sun intermittently throughout this year. So that's a really good indication that, yeah, it is very possible that you can do something like that. And then next year, you're going to have your Jupiter return, and Uranus will be there too. So I would say, like, if you're going to do something like that, the plan really should be make sure that you guys are sharing the expenses. Make sure also that the goal is to get in there, get it going, start seeing clients, build it up, hire staff within this next year as Jupiter comes into conjunction with Uranus in 2024. Because that is your whole sign 11th house lord. So it's about hiring another group of people to come in and do that. With Pluto moving into your 11th house, coming into an opposition with your moon, the one thing is like, yeah, you can have challenges with women. It is possible. There can be some conflict there. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be with someone you work with. It could be with a child, right? Because it's in the 5th house. It could be with a romantic partner. It could be with perhaps even a friend. It doesn't necessarily have to mean there's going to be issues with a business partner. In the back of my mind, though, okay, you have Pluto at 14 degrees, which means some of the root causes of issues that you have with relationships is other people's power issues, their wants or their needs to control things, right? Libra. Equally, it's at a Taurus degree. So just so you're aware, be advised, down the road, when we start having eclipses conjuncture Pluto, when we start seeing that there is the south node coming into conjunction with your Pluto, you want to be on the up and up. Like, it is possible you're going to see at the beginning of 2024 some challenges in relationships with other people as a result of power struggles and issues with money. Now, for all we know, it doesn't necessarily need to be her. I think it will be, possibly, because it's going to square all of your 10th house. But it may also be clients, and saying to clients, look, costs of things are going up. I need to charge more. Some people may not like that. They may not have the money for things. They may say, well, I'm not going to be able to come as often. So just be forewarned at the beginning of 2024, there's going to be something kind of going on like that briefly, right? It's not going to last forever. That'll swing through pretty much the spring of 2024. Then you're going to have Jupiter, Uranus come into your 2nd house. And I would say it would be wonderful if you got into a space where not only do you know that you had other stations that you could rent, so you have that security, but you could start bringing people in to also kind of like, start taking clients, so you could take a step back and just be like, okay, I'm just an investor in this. I also wonder if it makes sense for you to do some kind of training, right? Because Jupiter is going to be in your 2nd house, making money from education, and it's going to trine your 10th house. So I wonder, do you want to let people come in there and train to, learn techniques or learn how to do permanent makeup or learn how to do other things? Like, there can be ways for you to either train or for you to have space where you could bring other people in that could do that. That could also cover some of the expenses. I would recommend that. I would also say that because Mars rules your 8th house, because Jupiter is going to be in a trine to your Mars pretty much all year, you don't have any harsh aspects that concern me in regards to finances. One thing that is going to come up though, May of this year, I was actually looking at these aspects today and I was like, that's kind of a big deal. We're going to see right when Mars comes into Leo, Mars will be on your moon, so this is going to be about you going back and forth in May with another person about, is it worth taking the risk? Do we invest the money? Do we get the loan? That kind of stuff. Mars will sit on your moon, oppose Pluto, and square Jupiter, which means really pay attention, be very careful. I think there's going to be a lot of volatility financially, especially like April, May, June, like ish, from that square. We've seen a lot of these squares in 2022, a lot of the financial squares, the Saturn-Uranus stuff, like all of that. So this is just a small kind of bite-sized chunk of something similar, but I would recommend don't do anything financially, like totally committing to anything, probably until after this date. Watch how that goes because it's going to square your nodes all at 0 degrees. A lot of it's going to be about whether or not a partner is going to be able to meet you halfway, not just with the responsibility, but financially. Are you guys both going to be able to qualify, and are you guys both going to be able to kind of cover some of these expenses? And just be modest because next year is more of a year for a time to grow. So I know that you're wanting to, open up your own place, but I wonder is the place that you're possibly working in or that you're talking about, taking over, that's kind of the impression that I got. Can you cover it financially, right? Is there an understanding that they're going to maintain the rent for X amount of years? Is that something you can get them to agree to? So that way you're not kind of building something and then realizing that a year from now the expenses are going to get higher, because that could also happen with Uranus and Jupiter coming together in your 2nd house. But you don't have any harsh aspects to your Mars. You have got a sextile from Saturn and a trine from Jupiter. So that does tell me that there is a lot of room to grow. Okay, cool. So if the rent is sent, I feel a lot better with that. As long as you know that there is a plan. Plan on getting in there, rolling up your sleeves, doing the work. It's going to take about a year. But I think next year is when you start to see that growth where you're like, okay, cool, I can step back a little bit. But still, I would never, ever, ever recommend starting a business with somebody unless you know their birth information. So at the very least, I would get their birth info and look at the synastry between the 2 charts and make sure that that's something that meshes. Whether you do that or you talk to somebody, I do that on the channel, so you can always come back and you can bring their birthday info. I would recommend that with your nodal transits that you're going through right now, because your transits are saying partners can come in and help you, but they need to have their shit together financially, and there can't be any power struggles. That's business as well as romantic relationships, okay? But for the most part, it looks good. Just go read up on that Saturn-Venus conjunction, because that's also at a 2, so it's going to be about whether or not she's got financial challenges, and Pluto coming into an opposition with your moon, okay? Good luck. What's up, Christine? Welcome to level 3. Let us know if you want to get a reading. You can get on my list. All right, so we've got Fatima, which I got your email. Let me pull that up. Let's see, there she is. No specific question. I'm balancing career and self-care. It's been a big theme as my career has kind of exploded. I'm handling it, but any tips for what's to come and maintaining my health? I just want to make sure I'm on track with my purpose and I'm open to whatever messages you have. I got you. Rome and Collins, you guys are next. Why does this look like it's, give me 1 second. I did not put the correct rising sign. I was like, there's no way she's an Aries rising. I know that you have some Virgo in there. I just know that about you. It's got to be in there somewhere. All right. Yes, it's your Virgo sun and your Venus. That's what it is. Okay. So you're a Cancer rising, you got your sun in Virgo, and your moon is in Leo. So you mentioned about trying to find balance between, you know, work, health, stuff like that. You said work blew up. Of course it did. Jupiter's moving through your 10th house right now. So awesome. Good for you. Probably the biggest thing that is going on, I mean, health is huge. Health, schedule, managing it, making sure that if you need help, you're getting the assistance needed, whether that's when it comes to your daily routines, getting stuff done, hiring somebody. Jupiter rules your 6th house of health, and it's moving through the 10th. And it's going to be there for a hot minute, Placidus-wise. What I like is that the growth in regards to your career, it's just going to keep rolling. Okay, you're going to see eclipses that are going to be taking place there. You've got a new moon that's going to be at 0 degrees, conjunct your midheaven. You have a solar eclipse that's going to be in April that's in your natal 10th house. That's really kind of setting the stage for brand new opportunities when it comes to expanding your career even more, which will be conjunct Jupiter. So I see like that Jupiter conjunction in April as you saying, okay, I'm making it my priority. I'm making sure that I'm doing the work when it comes to my 6th house stuff. I noticed that you've got Neptune and also the South Node in your natal 6th house. So there can be a sense of, you know, overworking, forgetting to eat, overworking, not sleeping as much, you know, losing track of time, like. And with some of these Neptune squares that are going on, I mean, it's a lot. Neptune oppose your Sun square Neptune is really driving home the focus and the emphasis on your natal Neptune, saying you need a little bit of faith and spirituality in your daily routine. A lot of this is making time for meditation, making time also for art, making sure there's music in the background, making sure that you get in that morning prayer, meditation. And also I think a lot of it is saying that if you're confused about what the direction of where life and your purpose is going, it's like saying simplify your daily routines. Don't make it feel so, I'm not gonna say chaotic, but like that there's too many things that are blending into one day, that you've got too many irons in the fire. The cool thing is also Jupiter is going to trine your Neptune. So in the midst of some uncomfortable Neptune squares, at least Jupiter in the 10th house is trining. So I'm wondering is what is opening up for you in terms of your career stuff. Is this something that's more teaching, education, like spiritual, like guiding other people? Like is that something that you're doing? Is it like a second job or something like that? Pull up your email again so I don't lose it. Handling it, but any tips on maintaining my health? I mean, Neptune squares, you always just want to make sure that, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, that's the way out of the Neptune squares is the Jupiter trine, right? And so maybe that means as your 9th house Lord is carrying into your 10th house, are you learning more about marketing? Are you learning more about publishing? Are you learning more about printing or creating things? Are you thinking about doing retreats? Are you thinking about teaching courses, right? Something like that can be going on because that Jupiter being connected to the 9th house is about learning. So it might be that you're teaching something. It might mean that you're deciding, hey, I need to take a course on social media, or I need to take a course on accounting, something that's going to really help you feel more successful or more capable when it comes to taking on some of these new tasks with Jupiter in your 10th house. These are good problems to have. I think what's also kind of funny is that Saturn's also going into this house. So there's like a double dose of where Saturn is going into the 9th house. The Lord is going into the 10th. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that you'll see more like when Saturn goes into your 9th house and it hits that 3 degrees, that it's going to be about speaking and writing. So right around the first half of April. And Saturn will stay in your 9th house for several months. It's not going to retrograde out until it looks like closer to the end of summer. So once it drops back down to about 3 degrees at the end of August, beginning of September, you have pretty much from April until August to focus on teaching, education, speaking, publishing. I think at a 3, I would also encourage you to think about how you can have some of that stuff transcribed, or how you could potentially look into like, oh, do I want to create like an ebook, or do I want to put together a website? It's a Gemini degree. So it's going to be something about communication and people being able to either read what you have to say, or because it's not really so much just watching. It's going to be like reading, right? And I like that Saturn's going to trine your Jupiter. It's going to trine your Jupiter and eventually your Mars. So I'm also wondering if this is about you like working with younger people, inspiring younger people, talking to them about, you know, how you have made changes. Jupiter trine, transit Saturn kind of feels like you're saying, hey, this is my way of being creative and like inspiring younger people or inspiring people to like, you know, work through their childhood issues or work through their love life issues, fifth house stuff, work through their creativity blocks, right? And you've got Jupiter at an 8. So it's also about abundance, manifestation, transforming things, how you're able to transform something that was difficult into something that is positive. And pretty much all year long, you'll be feeling Saturn in opposition to your Venus. So that tells me for you, it's also going to be about maintaining like relationships like with your mentors as well. Like this may be a year where you jump into teaching or you start doing more consulting or you decide that you want to write something, but you're still under the guidance for like the next year and change of like a mentor, or somebody may pop in. When Saturn goes into your 9th house, somebody may pop in that you resonate with, that you're like, I want to learn more of this particular modality. And like, I'm going to, you know, study under this person, or I'm going to buy their books, or I'm going to buy their program, until you really come out of that Saturn-Venus opposition next year. So there's something still that you're learning as well. Health-wise, I would just say really, you know, focus on not losing track of time. I would say substances, that can be a thing with Neptune opposed the Sun, square Neptune, and make sure that you are having structure to what you're doing with your day-to-day. I can only imagine, I'm having Neptune transit my 6th house right now, and it's like, it's really hard for me to stay focused on things. Like I maintain a schedule, but it's really hard for me because halfway through the day, I'm like, and that's a wrap. I need to take a nap, and then I'll go back at it in a couple hours. And it's like, there's no real way to deal with it other than trying to maintain your energy levels and staying inspired. And if you get tired, you get run down. If your health isn't great, if your mental health isn't great, you're not going to be as productive. So you want to catch some of that stuff in advance. And your Neptune is at a Pisces degree. So that tells me that you have to make sure that you're eating and drinking well, you're getting adequate sleep, and you're not just starting things and dropping them, right? Because there can be a tendency of starting something and then not finishing it, and then coming back around to it and then not remembering. So staying on task is going to be the most important. And if you have a Sag mentor, what eventually will happen as Saturn goes further through Pisces over the next 2 years, I'm not going to say that you won't still work with them, but I anticipate your schedule is going to pick up to the point where you're not always going to be having weekly chats, or you're not always going to be having regular sessions. Eventually with Saturn square Neptune, you'll start to grow out of that as much, and you'll feel within 2 years you're ready to kind of fly, you know? And if anything, I would say watch the eclipses, because the eclipses are now coming in Aries and Libra. So you're going to see the South Node swing through your 4th house. So it's clearing your past, clearing all that family karma. You might move, you might deal with a lot of letting go of like home and family stuff. And you're making space for your 10th house, which is being in the driver's seat of your own life. And you're still going to see a lot of squares to Pluto. So if you're going into the business of having clients and stuff, be careful with the node square Pluto, because it means you need to have boundaries with people. There's going to be some people who are very intense. Their energies can be a little toxic, and you want to just use caution when it comes to business relationships, because it's in Capricorn, who you decide to do business with. And there can be people who can just become like really obsessive and like fixated, right? So just be mindful of that, right? Just be mindful, at least through about August. The square starts to calm down after we get out of July. At that point in time, then you're going to realize like, okay, who is and is not kind of in my corner. But I love all the eclipses in the North Node and Jupiter going through your 10th house really for the next like year and then some. So it's full steam ahead with career. Just focus on staying on task. That's the biggest thing with some of those squares. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Exactly. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know how those eclipses go. You should go look at the eclipse degrees, because I can tell they're hitting all your Libra stuff. It's either conjunct or it's opposed all your Libra stuff. So it's like saying, nope, we're going to pull you out of your mom's house. We're going to pull you out of your old feelings about old relationships. We're pulling you out of the family drama. And then the North Node is saying it's time to go out there, and really focus on what you're building within your career, which is, it's a bit discombobulating, those eclipses. I've been through those with Saturn in the 4th house myself, and there's a lot of like, nope, we're leaving this, it's not my problem anymore. So a lot of letting go of the guilt. Good luck. Thank you for stopping by and getting a reading, and wishing you lots of good vibes with your new work endeavors. I got Rome, Collins, Heather, and SR. Last call for readings. We're going to close it in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Rome, my buddy. How's it going? It's nice to see you. I would imagine things are a little weird for you right now with all that Virgo in your chart. Let's see. You got a particular question for me, Rome? Weird for sure. Well, let's talk about it. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about, considering Neptune's no longer in an opposition to your sun. So let's be stoked for that. That's over. That's not an easy transit. All right, so Mars is on the move. He's awake now. He's moving through your 3rd house. I know he's coming into your 4th house pretty soon. Jupiter's also starting to oppose all of your Libra. So, okay, listen up. You have Mercury, Saturn, and Pluto in your 7th house natally. Mercury in Libra is like, I don't know, what do you want to do? Saturn in Libra is feeling the limits in some relationships, but also at the same time, it's exalted. Okay, so it's karma in regards to relationships. And then you got that conjunction to Pluto, which is like some heavy stuff. You're kind of used to, with all of your planets on the right-hand side of this chart between the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th house, a lot of things that happen to you are as a result of other people. Okay? Other people causing problems, other people showing up, other people needing help, other people. You got Saturn, the Sun, Neptune, Jupiter, the North Node, Uranus, and Mars, all on the left-hand side of this chart, which means the energy is all in your favor. It's what you want to do with it right now. The Jupiter opposed Mercury and Saturn and Pluto, I would watch for. I would go back. I would look at what happened 12 years ago with Jupiter going through your 1st house, the new things that started, the new energy that you had, the new optimism, and where it was not challenging, but definitely kind of keeping some people on their toes, like not just immediately letting other people show up, right? I think Jupiter is very intelligent. I think he's wise. He, in the sign of Aries, can be very action-packed. There can be a sense of also like, I would rather go at it on my own. And I get the feeling that over the next few weeks, as Jupiter starts opposing your Mercury first, so there's like a sense of being like, nope, I'm on my own time schedule. I'm not doing things according to what other people need. I'm doing what I need. And then when it comes into an opposition with Saturn, Jupiter says, I want to expand. And Saturn says, but I need this. You're going to feel some resistance to just making sacrifices for others. This will be the end of March going into April. And then Jupiter is going to come into an opposition with Pluto. The good news is it brings a lot of attention to you. So it's like, if you're out and about around town, you're working out, you're going and you're doing your thing, like you're really self-focused with Jupiter in your 1st house right now, it will catch the attention of other people. You also have Jupiter that's in a square to the nodes. So yet another square situation. Jupiter rules your 9th house of travel, belief, and philosophy, education. So I wonder, where are you getting the push to teach people, train people? Where are you getting the push to preach, to travel? Like, what's going on? You know, Jupiter square the nodes is very fortuitous. It seems to suggest that there are new things that are on the horizon for you right now, and you know that you should be starting them. but there may be a sense of doubt that starts to come up when it opposes all that Libra, where it's like, okay, but what about other people? Like you and Fatima should hang out because you guys are going through the same thing. Just for you, it's about you learning not to make sacrifices and put what's best for you, your best interest, on the back burner for others. For her, she's learning to do it with her home and family. For you, you're learning to not do it with relationships. So instead of just jumping right in with all that Virgo and all that Libra, yes, I'll fix you, let's do it together. You're like, no, that seems like a hot ass mess. I could fix that, but I don't want to do that. That's going to take away from what I'm focusing on. So you got to put your blinders on right now. Be super self-focused, even though you're going to be like, oh, but maybe I'm being selfish. Nope, doesn't matter. This is like, between now and May, you get the pass to do that. Because whatever, I'm going to say, selfishness or whatever self-investments you're making is going to end up materializing as being a little bit more financially sound, right? You're getting ready to see Jupiter go into your second house. So that's definitely going to bring you more opportunities for finances, more opportunities when it comes to growth, right, of physical goods. You might start teaching, you might start traveling, something like that's going to happen. And it's all going to start then trining your midheaven, trining your north node, right? I would be praying a lot. That's just me. You don't have to be like a religious person, but just like praying, even if you want to work with Jupiter. I mean, like literally with a chart like this, I would be working with Jupiter regularly, because when you start to fall into that Virgo doubt or that guilt that comes with like, well, but am I not helping people? But am I not being productive? Like whatever. There can be a sense of stalling and spending too much time worrying about things rather than getting the show on the road, right? Saturn's also in the next month or two about to oppose your moon. So you got some really interesting stuff here. That's something else I wanted to talk to you about. Mars is going into your 10th house, and that's important because you are ruled by Mars. So we're going to see Mars enter into Cancer here very soon, the end of March. And for you, right around the beginning of April, your chart ruler goes into the 4th house, which means you are focusing on where am I living? What am I fixing around the house? What am I building? You know, where am I? It can be about searching. It can be about finding a place. So Mars entering your 4th generally is not ideal. Everybody has the transit every 2 years. If you have something to work on or build or kind of like fix, it's a lot easier. If you don't and you're living with other people, there can be a sense of you getting irritated very easily with the people who you're sharing a space with. So just be mindful, especially because, you know, Cancer is a little crabby. But we're going to see Mars move into your 4th house, and it's going to sit on your north node at a 10. So that's literally about work from home, work with family, work with real estate. Something like that's coming. I'm worried to lose my gym if I leave Texas, but I think I have to because my living situation is whack. Yeah. So when Mars comes into conjunction with your north node around mid-April, I want you to pay attention. It's both going to be a combination of that, and it's also going to be a combination of the eclipse that we're then going to have in Aries at 29 degrees conjunct Jupiter. And where is the ruler? Mars is going to be in your 4th house. So it's saying, it's prompting you pretty much from mid-April on to be like, where is home? I'm figuring it out. I'm on my way. Where am I going? And that eclipse is in opposition to your Pluto, which means you could have an offer from someone who's like, hey, I've got a place, you want to come be here, or this, that, and the other. And it could be tempting. You could, but I would say just be careful because it's also in a square to Pluto. So there is a sense of like wanting to really define what is yours and what's other people's things. So like, you know, you might look at this and go, I don't just want to stay somewhere. I want to be able to be somewhere where I can work. And if I'm working and I'm contributing, I want my space. I want my peace. I don't want to be bothered. Because I think until Jupiter leaves your 1st house, you're going to kind of feel like that this year. That you're not going to want people kind of like messing around and giving you a hard time. I would watch that eclipse, especially because of the opposition to Pluto. It makes me feel like you're going to kind of stand tall because it's going to be on the cusp of your 2nd house, whole sign, and be really adamant about this is mine, or this is what you're going to pay me, or this is what I'm going to charge, or this is what I need in terms of, you know, my salary or my wage. And you're going to have to be a little bit more defined in regards to resources and very clear with what you need from other people. You're going to hear for Virgos that eclipse is in the 8th house, and it's about a transformation of joint resources. So there's some truth there, but it's in your 1st house. It means you're changing the relationship that you have with other people when it comes to exchange, right? So there's something about that exchange where you're like, okay, I'll live with you, and maybe I'm going to do work in exchange, but that's the exchange. Or I'm going to, pay rent. This is what I'm going to contribute, but this is my defined space, and I'm not going to have you impeding. So there needs to be more of a sense of things being defined, of yours versus other people's things. I'm excited also to see over this next year, as Saturn is going into the 12th house, I also feel like you could very easily find a private space. Saturn will oppose the moon, and you're also going to see Saturn, when it does that at a 4, that you're going to be like, I like having my own bedroom. I don't want to hear noise. I want to be able to get adequate rest. I don't want to be dealing with animals and roommates and other things because it's opposing placements in the 6th house. Equally, the trine to your Jupiter makes me feel like you could probably find a private training space. You could probably find a private gym, or you could find some kind of private, place where maybe there's other practitioners, where you could do some kind of work, because Saturn's going to be in your 12th house for like a hot minute. Like it's going to be there for a while. So really good time as an Aries rising to start getting serious about a meditation practice. I'm loving that Saturn is going to sextile your midheaven and your south node. It makes me feel like you don't have to go and get just a normal, 8 or 9 to 5 job. You can go and do something privately and have some peace. And it is going to help you start building over this next year towards a more solid, consistent home base, because Saturn will be trining your north node. So you will be able to do that. Like financially, things are really going to blossom for you pretty much from May on, between the eclipse that we're going to be having really close to your Jupiter, and then we're going to see Jupiter hang out in your 2nd house for the rest of the year, right? So look for private spaces. I almost wonder if you could go and find, like, if there's places where there's like a combination of like, because Pisces is spiritual, maybe like private training or like yoga, or maybe there's someone who does like adjustments or like acupuncture. And if they have space where you can do your training or do your coaching or whatever it is you want to do, those are the places you want to be looking for. It's like a community center, and you may not necessarily belong to that, but you're like, well, I'll go and work there because, I can have access to the community, and maybe you pay rent or you pay your dues, but there's people who are all coming to that space, right? So look for that as well. That's the other thing I would say. And any of you guys who are born in 82, 83, with where your guys' Saturn and Pluto placements are, all these eclipses are going to start lighting things up like a Christmas tree. So I think you're going to be really surprised to see, as the South Node goes into Libra over the summer, it's like you're clearing out lots of relationship karma. Like there's something that's getting cleared out in terms of your relationships with other people. And it's going to be nice to say goodbye to that. And then you're preparing to see your nodal squares, but that's not going to be for another year plus. So you don't have to worry about that yet. Just focus on getting a space where you can have some peace, whether that's going to be a place where you're living or a place where you're going to be doing your work. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay. Yeah, are we good? Hopefully we're good. Froze, but it's back. Okay. Sounds good, Rome. Be well. We got Collins, Heather, SR, and Yellow Flower Tarot. Here we go. Let's find Collins. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Collins, I meant to ask you, I have April 12th, 1986 at 12:49. Was that PM? In Atlanta, Georgia? AM. Okay, I wanted to make sure. Let me change that because I wanted to make sure I had the right time. Here we go. Questions about a hearing that you're having in regards to custody. So I have you here as a Capricorn rising, and your sun is in Aries and your moon is in Taurus. Do you mind me asking the birth date of your daughter? So I'll just kind of say, just to get started, you know, this goes back. This goes back to 2021. You had an eclipse that was right on top of your moon in the fall of 2021, which deals with a daughter, a female daughter. Fifth house is your children. And the eclipse was in opposition to the sun. So that represents basically other people, joint resources, partnership, right? 8th house. Since then, we've seen other eclipses that have been in Taurus. We have also seen some retrogrades that have been in Taurus. So there's been this back and forth in regards to talking about a child. Saturn has been going through Aquarius in the 2nd house, squaring the moon, making it challenging in terms of coming to a genuine understanding about either, I'm going to say like possession of the child, right? Because the 2nd house is what we possess, or finances relating to the child. Now, in the next year, it's going to be more next year, okay? You're going to see this more 2024. Uranus and Jupiter are going to come into conjunction with your moon. So I'm going to tell you this preemptively. That may materialize as changes in regards to the cost of like child support, the shared expenses, anything like that. Like that's definitely a thing that even if you do have a determination, I'm very confident that that's probably going to go down. So just be advised. The moon rules your 7th house of relationships as well. So being that the moon is in its exaltation, off the bat, looking at that does tell me that you are going to have a situation where your partner is going to be physically attached, Taurus, to your child. Okay, that's going to happen. So it doesn't really make me feel very confident that there is going to be a situation where one party is going to have full custody. Okay, I understand this is a personal situation, so you can give feedback or not. The other thing is that you're in a really significant period right now of personal transformation. Okay, so you know, for you to say, hey, I'm anxious, I'm afraid. That's the Pluto in your 1st house at 29 degrees talking right now. It's this is so challenging. I have to fight. I'm having to push so hard, right, Capricorn? And it's in a square to your node. So it's saying that whether it's because of things that are going on with your body, things that's going on in terms of your responsibility, the situation with your child, you're being pushed to evolutionarily grow, right? To expand, to push beyond your limits, to push beyond fear. So you're going to feel the pressure here for a little bit until the better part of like July or August, and then it will start to subside. Okay. I also feel that as we see Jupiter go through Taurus the next 2 years, it will be reactivating the eclipses that we have had. So that makes me feel confident that nothing here makes me feel or assume that you're not going to have contact with your daughter. I think you will. And I especially think that when Jupiter is coming into conjunction with Venus. Makes me wonder if there's a sense of a back and forth that's going on because of 2 separate living arrangements and like where ultimately she may be going to school because Jupiter is the ruler of the 3rd house of education. So there can be like a lot of shuffling around as a result of that. Okay. So let's look at her info. 11/14/2017. Okay, so she's got a sun in Scorpio, moon and Mars in Libra, and let's see, sun in opposition to moon. So together you guys are a full moon. All right, Saturn, got it, Pluto, and the South Node is moving through the 4th house to her Sun. Okay, so basically, do you mind me asking you a couple questions? Did you guys, 1014? Oh, 1014, sorry, I have 1114. Thank you. There we go. Sun in Libra, Mercury in Libra, Jupiter, Moon in Leo, Moon square Moon, and the Moon's on the North Node. Okay, I still feel like you're not gonna not have contact with your daughter. Having Venus and the Moon belonging to your 5th house, that's pretty evident that that's gonna be something that's gonna stay, especially with the Jupiter transits that are going on. So I don't really see that going away. I would really pay attention in this chart to July and August, knowing that she's got her North Node and her Moon in your 8th house, because Venus is going to go retrograde through there. So it's going to be probably about a reevaluation in regards to how she's feeling about the matter, in a sense of perhaps, you know, feeling like she's being torn in 2 directions. Has anybody talked about the possibility of either you and her, or you, her, and maybe her mom, or somebody doing some kind of like therapy? Has that come up? Saturn's been in opposition to her Moon in this entire year, basically. That generally manifests as a year where there is not as much togetherness with mother, or feeling disconnected from mom, or feeling like mom is challenging to kind of like relate to. Oh, okay, cool. So you are in therapy with her. Okay, cool. Okay, so then there you go. So the retrograde then that I'm referencing is going to be in July and August. That may be a time where then you are reevaluating, like, are we good? Are we good here? Like, can we work through some of this stuff? A lot of it's just her transits, you know? A lot of it's just her transits. I think that between the Saturn going through her South Node and the opposition to her Moon, there is a sense of mom worrying about becoming detached from her, but I don't really foresee that happening. I mean, I just don't. And in her chart, Saturn is representation of father, and she's got Saturn that is the 3rd house to the Sun. So there is a sense of going back and forth, being able to communicate and talk to dad, but I don't really get the impression that she's going to be going anywhere. If you've looked at your guys' synastry before, you know that she's got Uranus pretty much right on your IC, which means there is a sense of her coming in, and then your home life, or, you know, your relationship with family, or who you were living with, even your ex-partner, became kind of turbulent, okay? Her being with Uranus in your 4th house, that's the energy that she brings. Equally, you've got her North Node and her Moon in your 8th house. You guys have a Mercury Chiron conjunction. I think that if you guys started therapy at some point in this last year, while Jupiter was in Pisces, it's really good, because it's allowing you guys to find ways to kind of communicate and connect better. And I also feel like the biggest challenge that you're going to see probably for the next year or so is going to be Saturn being 6th house to her Sun, and getting her to maintain a routine. So it's like, I don't think it's going to be her age. I think it's going to be more, okay, is she one way when she's with mom? Is she another way when she's with dad? And how she's adjusting to possibly spending time between 2 separate places. Because that's probably what's going to start happening here. It's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. With Pluto coming into a square with her Jupiter, it does say that there's going to be a sense of her having to go back and forth and have 2 different environments that she's kind of, you know, bouncing back and responding from. I would continue to stay in therapy with her if you can. I mean, if you guys take a break, you might find that you have to go back to that over the summertime, but that may be a time when there's a Venus retrograde where there's a breakthrough for her and for both of you guys in regards to relationships. What day are you guys going to court? March 23rd. That's what I have here. Let's see. Let me look at that date for you. Okay. Okay, so we've got March 23rd. The sun's going to be in Aries. You're going to have the moon in the north node coming into conjunction with your Venus. So that in itself, I feel like, is a testament. Exalted moon and Venus coming together. You're having your Venus return, and it's all heading for your 5th house. And it's making trines to your natal Neptune and your Mars. The only challenge that I see that day is that that moon and that north node is coming into a square with Pluto. So it is going to be about how you're defining your control or your power over a situation in regards to either your child or your home or your family. It's going to oppose Pluto. So that also tells me that there is going to be a bit of like a power struggle, a bit of a tug of war. But I think having Venus in its home sign, the moon conjunct the north node, it's all going to be in your 4th house. That's a pretty clear indication that if you are hoping to keep a female child, Venus rules your 5th, or a female relative home with you, it's very likely that that's what's going to happen. But still, I'm going to go back to, there are going to be changes that are going to be happening in regards to your kid when Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction with your moon. So it may mean that you've got a crazy partner that's like, well, I want to have more time with her and wants to challenge in about a year or so how much money they're paying for child support or how much time they're having with the kid. Or for all we know, the transits could mean they go into her 5th house and she starts playing sports, or she's taking dance classes, or she's taking art classes, and you're like, okay, like I'm having to spend more money on my child, so I'm going to need more support. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It may also materialize as just you focusing more time on, developing some of her talents and some of her skills because it's the 5th house. But I couldn't have picked a better time to go to court with your 7th house lord in its exaltation coming into conjunction with the 4th. It's very clear based off of this in the 4th house too, that you're hoping to like put this, like an end to this matter. I mean, I'm sure you want to, but the 4th house is the ends of situations. So it's right after a new moon. And then it's going to come into a full moon. And the full moon that you're going to be having, I will show you, is going to be in Libra, and it's going to be in opposition to Chiron. So it means that likely this is going to materialize as somebody else now having to deal with what the decision was, right, between your home and somebody else's home. So that tells me that somebody's going to have to be basically being like, okay, this is the way that things are going to go now, and that's the adjustment period that's going to be happening all the way up until the beginning of April, and it's going to square Mars. So whatever the outcome is, it's not looking as positive for the other person, and it's looking like they're going to have to make some changes, or that they're going to have to be kind of running around and trying to appease what you're creating. Because all that energy at the bottom of your chart, you're like, I want to make sure what I have, what I want to keep secure, my kid, my family, my home, I want it all here. I don't want things going other places. So the transits look really positive. Come back, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear. I can tell you it's going to be fireworks come the beginning of April though. So just be aware. With Mars opposition, with this full moon that's going to be activating the 4th and the 10th house, and then you're going to have a solar eclipse in the 4th house. Yeah, it's there's a lot going on in regards to changes within the home and family, but Jupiter is there saying, hey, it's positive, right? It's positive. And I'm wondering how this ties into the relationship that you have with your family. So it could be your parents, it could be your mother. But with eclipses and Jupiter going into your 4th house, it does seem to be symbolic that support is coming from other family members that are going to help you out throughout this time, even if it's just emotionally, or even if it's just people coming to be around and want to support you. Okay? Come back, leave me a comment. I want to hear what happens, because all of the planets in their exaltations is very, very good for you. Good luck. We've got Heather, SR, and then Yellow Flower. Let's see. Heather S. I'm pretty sure I have you in here. February 12th, 84. Yeah. Heather says, I've been working on building my intuition the past couple of months and it's been working. It's so cool. I'd like to take it to the next level. Is there anything in my chart that indicates psychic abilities or planets and houses I should work on with this focus? Okay, cool. Cap rising, sun in Aquarius, and your moon is in Gemini. I like that the Mars retrograde on your moon has had you working on your intuition. But you got to work at it, you know? Having the moon in the 6th house is like, I got to develop it. I got to make the time. So let's talk about psychic development. So the psychic planets, right? Because there's planets and then there's houses. The psychic planets are going to be more so like the moon, Neptune, and believe it or not, I think sometimes even Mercury, right? So all of those planets, because Mercury is the receiver, so it can be more about like mental stuff or even divination. The moon is going to be much more about intuition and dreams and feelings and vibes. And then Neptune is also just going to be about that divine kind of connection that we might have more through like meditation or maybe prayer, or maybe even like our sleep, right? So what do you got going on here? Well, Mars has been retrograde back and forth on your moon, and your moon has received a lot of activations, okay? There's been an eclipse that was on that degree. We've seen Mars going back over that degree. We've seen a Mercury retrograde over that degree. Likely, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like a lot of this has been about not just working on your intuition or your intuition abilities, but I think it's also been learning to differentiate the difference between, okay, is this anxiety or stress, or like, is this my intuition like telling me something? And how can I calm down, breathe, right, Gemini, into it, or relax the mind and like let it flow rather than trying to be busy? Thank God you've got some earth in your chart, because with that trine between your Gemini moon and your Aquarius sun, like, and your moon opposes Uranus, it's all over the place. It's like very active. It likes to move around a bit. So I would say breath work, number one, can be really helpful for you with that moon in the 6th house, because it kind of calms it down and it gives it a little bit of groundedness, so that way you can receive the messages more clearly. Of course, you're super psychic because your moon trines the sun, and the sun is the 8th house lord, right? And so I think this is also about like learning how to turn it on and off, or like learning to flex it, because the moon rules your 7th house. So it tells me that you can pick up on what other people are thinking, or what other people are feeling emotionally. And maybe it's a matter of like learning to be like, is that mine feelings or somebody else's? Or like, you know, like, am I picking this thing up? Animals can help, pets can help, because you have your moon in the 6th house. I'm also wondering if it would be a good idea for you to like work with like flashcards. They make like those psychic flashcards. Have you seen those where they have like the square and the circle and the triangle or whatever? It sounds silly, but like literally when I used to teach psychic development, I would say you don't have to work with those flashcards. You can hold them up. Especially if you have a partner, this is a really great exercise, but if you have a Gemini moon, you'll like it. Take a deck of cards, shuffle the deck of cards. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. If you have another person, I would recommend you hand the deck to that person. They're going to pick up the card. They're going to look at it, right? And so like, let's say they have the red diamond. They want to mentally send you that. Okay. So I would tell my students, okay, it's a red diamond. So what are you going to send so they get the color red? Fire, right? You could send roses, you could send heat. Try to mentally send it to you so you can receive it, and see if you can get the color. Okay, so if it's black, it's going to be, it's cold, it's dark, I can't see anything, it's icy, things that are dark, and you want to have them mentally send that picture to you. Have them hold the card up right in front of you and see how many of the colors you can get correctly. So you're exercising that mental ability to receive information, Moon and Gemini. But like I said, pets can be good, particularly like birds, right? Birds or cats can be a thing, or dogs, any of those things, because it's in your 6th house. And just repetition, right? The 6th house is something we make time to do all the time. It's like one of our chores, one of our to-do lists. So maybe if you're setting aside time to do it every day and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it similar to brushing my teeth or, you know, making my bed, you're gonna become definitely even stronger with it. But I like your moon in a 19. I feel like you really will do well working with other people to develop more mental kind of traits. I think also, you know, because you have all of the different elements that are represented, there's nothing here that's like really lacking. You have a lot of water, you have fire, you have earth, you have air. I mean, there's nothing here. I would just say it's just a matter of repetition and doing it regularly. You may also, being a Gemini moon, be open to wanting to learn more about channeling. So I'm wondering, with that being in Gemini, like, do you get a voice recorder? Do you start learning about automatic writing? Do you start journaling things that you're getting visions about, and then, you know, go back and reflect on it over the week and like see like what's actually been popping up and coming up for you, right? Because that moon likes to analyze things if it's in the 6th house. It kind of acts like a Virgo moon. It's like, okay, so I wrote all of this down last week, and this, and this, it popped up. Or these are the signs I'm looking for. I'm going to be looking for these signs. Let's see if they pop up to confirm things. And then go back and look over what you were writing. That can be another way for you to do it. I also think that the psychic houses are going to be tied to the 4th, 8th, and the 11th. And you've got some Uranus transits in the 4th, so that can kind of wake things up intuitively. The 8th is the sun, so you have the moon trine the sun. Diet and also exercise is a big thing. If you have your sun in the 2nd house and the moon in the 6th, like really taking good care of mental and physical health and being mindful of what you're eating. And that might also mean that you need to have some food in your system to be grounded, to be able to connect, so you're not super floaty. And then the 12th house, you know, being about psychic abilities and intuition and dreams, you got Jupiter and Neptune conjunct there. So that also tells me that you can do very well with like water scrying, divination, dream interpretation, hypnosis, past life recall. These are all things that should interest you. I don't know if they do, but they should. And being in the 12th house, they can be hidden talents. So I also wonder, have you ever been interested in doing like aura like paintings, or do you feel like you see colors? Is that a thing? Cool. So that stuff too, right? And as you see Pluto, because Pluto's coming into Aquarius now, I work with like a 2 or 3 degree orb. I like planets to be within a tight orb for them to, in my mind, like actually make something happen. But I mean, if you're dealing with a heavy hitter like Pluto or Neptune, you start feeling that within like 10 degrees. And you've got Pluto within 5 degrees of your Mercury, right? So that tells me that you're going to start noticing and picking up on things very strongly. When you have a Pluto-Mercury transit, you'll probably become really obsessed with astrology or with like, you know, like conspiracy theories or aliens or like something. And you might get really interested in learning more about like frequency healing, because Mercury rules your 6th house, or psychic healing. That could be something else. So over the next several years, Pluto's going to be conjunct that. And I've seen a lot of clients go through the Mercury-Pluto transit, and they can like read other people's minds, especially when they're in air signs. That's definitely a thing. And it'll be Pluto conjunct Mercury and Pluto square Pluto. So it tells me that you're going to be wanting to learn more about other things so you can redefine or make changes in terms of like maybe even how you're navigating some of your professional life. I don't know. That seems to be wild right now with South Node eclipses in your 10th and Uranus tearing through your 4th house. There's a lot of like, I want to quit my job and try to do this thing, you know, or like make this be a thing, or I want to try to figure out how I can live my personal life more in tune with my intuition, or be, you know, connecting to like nature. Wild transits. Uranus opposed Saturn and Mars in a square to your sun. Wow. You're going to see over the next 2 years with Jupiter Uranus just tearing through your 4th house that you're just going to be so much more focused on your intuition, your home, your family, wanting to be closer to nature. It's going to throw your sun for a bit of a loop. And I think a lot of your values start to change. You see lots of changes in what you value. And you'll go, I don't know if I like want all these things. Maybe I want like a simpler life, and I want to focus on, you know, being able to have more time to do these things that I like to do. So I would watch for that. That's some wild astrology that you got going on there. But hopefully that's helpful in terms of helping you kind of work out some of the kinks in regards to your psychic development stuff. I think so many people are going to be asking about this because Saturn's going into Pisces. So many people are going to be like, how do I meditate? Or like, how do I learn more about, you know, the other worlds, or where do we go when we sleep or when we die? So there's going to be a lot more opportunity, I think, for people to kind of build firmer foundations with some of these practices. You're very welcome. Good luck. Thank you for tuning in. We've got SR and Yellow Flowers and then Gloria. Let me update my list. I know we've got some other people on here too. Okay. Oh, that's right. Cheyenne, I've got you. Let me put her in. Okay, so SR gifted you a reading. And this is for Cheyenne, May 3rd, 2001, 11:56 a.m. in Liverpool, Australia. She wants to know about career, and I want to know how I can make the most money and what career is best. And just for the rest of you guys, just so you know who else I have. Yellow Flower, Gloria, Lucas, Katie, Alana, Wendy, Stephanie, and Magic Lotus. You guys are the ones that I got. Cheyenne says, I'm very lazy, but I like money. I think a lot of people would identify as that. Okay, so here's the deal. You're a sun in Taurus, a Cancer rising, and your moon is in Virgo. You say you're lazy. I don't know about that. With that sun in Taurus and the moon in Virgo, and they trine each other, and that sun's pretty close to the midheaven. So the question is what would be good work-wise? How can I make the most money, and what career would be best for me? Okay. So here's the deal. Over the next 2 years, and I'm going to preface this by saying I've been like 20-ish, okay, and gotten readings, and I've had an astrologer be like, this, and this won't happen until you're older, and I was like, fuck you. So please don't let that be one of these moments, because it could very easily be one of these moments. I'm going to be honest with you in terms of timing. You've got Saturn that rules other people. Okay, Saturn is like a strict teacher, somebody who tells you, you know, you need to do X, Y, and Z before you pass the class. Saturn is moving into your 8th house of other people's money. And you're going to see over the next 2 years, it's going to start coming into an opposition with your moon in the 2nd house. So people who have the moon in the 2nd house, especially if you're a Cancer rising, you're like, I need my snacks, I need my comfortable living, I need my, you know, clothing and my materials of choice. And you're a Virgo moon, so you're going to be very particular about these things. And Taurus likes quality, okay? You're not going to buy cheap stuff. So what you're going to experience over the next 2 years is this feeling of limitation, right? People are going to say, no, I'm not covering your expenses as much anymore. You know, I'm not going to be buying you clothes anymore. I'm not going to be giving you as much, you know, allowance, or we're not going to be footing the bill for things. And whether it's, you know, a significant other, a boyfriend, or if it's a parent, you're just going to start seeing people are going to be like, no, you need to find your own way. You're going to hear this more. The positive, because there is positive here, is that you're also seeing eclipses still happening in your 10th house of career, and Uranus is moving through your 10th house of career. So to me, it seems like there's been a little bit of being all over the place recently, trying to figure out like what you want to be when you grow up. And you have the next 2 years to figure that out. I think the Saturn in opposition to your moon, feeling the tightness with other people not being as generous, will literally materialize as you being like, well, I got to find a way to, you know, maintain my lifestyle. So I'm going to, you know, do X, Y, and Z. I will say with your sun being so close to your midheaven, I don't know what you look like, but you certainly demand a lot of attention. Right? Because if somebody's got the sun on their midheaven, it's just like they're just seen. They're out there. And I wonder if you would do well as being somebody who is like, I hate to say it, but like an influencer, right? And all in those placements in Taurus. So somebody who would be like, You know, oh, look at my clothes, look at my this, look at my that, look at what I bought. Like, this is where I bought it. And you like do some like affiliate type thing. That would actually be really wonderful with Venus in your 8th house. I wonder if you could do that for products or other things. Taurus generally, you know, like the textbook stuff you're going to hear is like, be a banker or be a beautician or be a farmer or be a florist. Like, okay, you could do those things, but Venus is the ruler of your midheaven and she's in the 8th house and she's in Aries. So that would be more like go and sell lingerie or be a dominatrix, right? Like these are things you could do. But I don't think that that's necessarily what you will do. I think you're going to be better off using the Uranus and Jupiter transits into your 10th over the next 2 years to become an affiliate of somebody with their products, basically. So like what products are you buying? You got Sun and Mercury and midheaven and Taurus and the 8th house Venus. So find a way to be able to start promoting the things that you're already buying. Focus on building social media, especially as Jupiter is coming into conjunction with Mercury, and being like, here's what I'm buying, here's what I'm wearing, giving reviews, and create affiliate links, and then start building up that social media so people can see what you're already buying. When people go, oh, I like the way that that bag looks, or that piece of clothing works, or I really like the way her makeup looks, what did you use? People are going to go and click those links, and then you're going to get paid for it. And it's shit you're already buying, which you don't have money for. I love you, but you don't have the money for it. I can see that with the Saturn opposition that's brewing. Equally, if we look at this from whole sign perspective, if you're a Cancer rising with Saturn and Jupiter in your 12th house, that also tells me that you may ultimately either go back to school or that as you get older, you start to realize what it is that you do want to learn about. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go and do that thing. And it could be all the way up until the time that you're 30 if you want to wait that long. But I don't really recommend that with some of the transits that you're going to be having. Just as a Cancer rising, Jupiter going into Aries and eclipses for the next 2 years is like time to get the show on the road and start doing things and initiating new work or new jobs, right? And you got Venus in Aries, so red hair, pink hair, but I also think of like fitness clothing, stuff that's going to be more athletic. This could also be athletic materials and other things that you're buying if you're into fitness and working out at home. Like these are other things that you could promote and then in turn sell. Sagittarius rules your 6th house. You got Mars there. So you got some energy that makes me feel like you say that you're lazy, but you care about what you look like. So you're going to do something according to this. And so I could see you going in the direction of either wanting to do marketing, Sagittarius, or wanting to do something in regards to fitness. Nope, it's in your 6th. I use Placidus because I'm a rebel. Mars is in your 6th house. Cusp of your 6th house, but it's your 6th house. And it's conjunct Chiron. So that's the other reason why you're like, I don't really know about working. I'm not so sure about that. What are you doing, if you don't mind me asking? So you're born in 2001, so you're like 22-ish? You're almost 22? Looks like you've been so busy with relationship drama that you haven't been too interested in working. Taking a break from studying. Medical science. Okay. Just food for thought still. I mean, look, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. You know? Still, if we look at your North Node in Cancer, it's in your 12th house. It still circles back to your moon, right? So your moon in the 2nd house, which is still going to be about money, resources, organization, health, Virgo. I look at this and I'm like, okay, Mars in the 6th house. Have you ever considered trying to do like aesthetic nursing? Permanent makeup, injections, things to enhance, you know, beauty, just beauty enhancements in general, especially that involve needles or anything in regards to stuff that's like sharp, because you have Mars in the 6th house. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you live. I know that it looks like you're born in Australia, but I wonder if it's worth considering a nursing program to be able to get the certification to do that. And then Mars in the 6th house makes me go, oh, 6th house Mars, Sun in the ninth. She would really like to do traveling. She would probably like to do travel nursing. Okay, great. So if you want to take science and you want to take beauty and put it together and make it possible for you to go and do house calls and go and do this stuff, you could, right? But still, it's that Saturn and Gemini, the Saturn conjunct Jupiter, you're not really going to figure out what you want to do until you have some really prominent transits through there. And you have recently, the North Node went through there already. So if you felt like you were overwhelmed and you needed to take a break, that's probably what happened over the last 2 years with some of these eclipses. But I say over the next 2 years with Jupiter being in Aries and planets moving through your ninth house, it's a really good time to possibly consider trying to do a combination of, like I said, either stuff that's going to be affiliate marketing or considering going in the direction of doing something with fitness and beauty or health and beauty. Those things would be really good for your chart. And 2024, things are going to get a lot more challenging for you. When Saturn opposes your moon, if you haven't figured out what you're doing financially, it's not going to be as easy to navigate a year from now. So knowing that that's coming, I would say it's probably a good idea to try to find a way to start something in this next year so that way you can navigate that with a little bit more ease, especially knowing that Jupiter hanging out in your 10th house in 2024, something could just suddenly blow up. I think that's what will happen. Jupiter and Uranus is literally a sudden growth period. So what's going to suddenly expand? Well, your study schedule, your school schedule, your work schedule. So whatever it is, you're going to have an abundance of whatever it is you're doing. It just depends on what direction that's going to be going in. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I would say consider some of those options. And thank you, SR, for being generous and donating a reading. Oh, so there you go. You're going to finish in 2024. I don't know. Something makes me wonder if you would be smart to consider doing something in regards to nursing so you could go in the direction of beauty, because I think that you may appreciate that more. Okay, so I've got Yellow Flower, Gloria, Lucas. We've got Katie, Alana, Wendy, and then Stephanie and Magic Lotus. Wendy, you got a little bit. Don't worry. Okay, so Yellow Flower and then Gloria. And then it looks like Yellow Flower was a Synastry. Oh. First one of the night. And that was for Amy. Okay, so Amy says, what do we need from one another at this time to stabilize our relationship into something more loving and committed? October 19th, 1974 in Salem, Massachusetts, one of my favorite places. And that was at 2:11 a.m. And then we've got the other person who's September 25th, 1979. And that was at 2:05 p.m. and that was in Jackson, Michigan. She says, I literally never do the Synastry, but we're a little bit of a hot mess. Okay, so you're a Leo rising with a sun in Libra and a moon in Sag. And you currently have just had Saturn show up on your descendant. So yeah, hot mess is right. So there is this sense of feeling the boundaries, the limitations, the heaviness of relationships. When that transit happens, it can feel like a make or break moment. And believe it or not, 7th house is other people. So I'm not saying that you do or do not have to stay in the relationship. It's just sometimes it's a lot about them needing to mature or needing space or needing to grow up, especially because Aquarius is an energy that is independent. Okay. His south node is in your 7th house. And so one thing I would say is that over this next year, Saturn will go from 0 to 7 degrees of Pisces. So it's going to sit in conjunction to the south node. So there is this theme of, do we stay together? Do I let him go? Right? And I don't really think it's that simple. I think that you may not really know until closer to next year. When you start to see Saturn creep up on his south node again, and it also comes into a square with your nodes at 11 degrees. Saturn's going to hit your Juno, your Ceres, and your Jupiter. And when we think about that archetypally, Ceres talks about nourishing and nurturing and giving and care. But in Pisces, it can be about whether or not they're dealing with depression, or whether or not they're isolating themselves, or whether or not they're having mental, emotional, or even addiction issues. Juno is about partnership and marriage and relationships. Jupiter is about expansion and growth. And Jupiter and Juno are husband and wife. So what's interesting is that you guys have a South Node Jupiter conjunction, so you don't need me to tell you, but that's past life, okay? It could literally equate to, oh, past life husband, you know, we're just doing this dance again. And then 2, Saturn coming into conjunction with your Ceres, your Juno, and your Jupiter. I guess the question for you is, what do you want when it comes to a relationship? Are you looking for commitment? Because Saturn sitting there is saying like, okay, are they capable of being long-term relationship potential? Can they show up in this way, right? Or are they working through some Pisces-related things? Saturn and Jupiter in transit together, like watching transit Saturn come in conjunction with your Jupiter, I don't think is all that bad. I think it's just really highlighting like where that other person really needs to learn about the experience that they're having. And sometimes Saturn Ceres can represent taking some time apart and having some separation. Saturn in opposition to your ascendant, taking space and having some time apart, right? Unless you have a really gnarly Uranus transit or Saturn transit, there's nothing here that makes me feel like the relationship's going to go kaput. Actually, all the transits right now are really positive for you. You just don't know it. I think if Saturn in your 7th house is challenging because it opposes you as a Leo rising, but trining your Venus, trining your Mars, trining your Sun, trining your natal Uranus, like, it's basically you going like, I can make this work. Just communicate with me. Just talk to me. Like, what's going on? Like, let's talk about this. Tell me what you need, right? So it's really working well with all that Libra, where like you have learned to become like a master negotiator or a master, just somebody who's just going to leave all the lines of communication open. Okay, so you're making it very possible for him to do that. I think the challenging thing that's going on is that Pluto is still squaring Uranus, which is your 7th house lord. And it's also still coming into eclipse season and in the summer when the nodes start closing in on your planets in Libra. So that tells me that you're kind of have like a working time up until this summer. You're going to have Venus retrograde on your ascendant, which is going to be about whether or not you're putting yourself first. Venus will actually turn retrograde right around 28, 29 degrees, right in conjunction to his Jupiter. That'll be a time to watch the second half of July as to whether or not you guys are able to kind of bring the love back in. Of course you like each other because he's got Jupiter on your ascendant, right? So that definitely does make me feel like there is a sense of him always wanting to be around. Now, when we look at where he's at with some of this stuff, you know, he is a Sagittarius ascendant. And he's coming into Saturn, moving into his 4th house. And it's gonna sit on his South Node. It's gonna square his ascendant and his descendant. I mean, he's very Neptunian. You know, he's got Neptune conjunct your moon, which can feel psychic and dreamy, but it can also feel sometimes like you're not getting what you need. Some of these Sagittarius risings, I just want to shake them because they don't realize with Mars going retrograde in opposition to their ascendant square Neptune that they can't repeat past traumas and like issues that come from childhood or come from their families or their past living situations that's inhibiting them to really show up in the relationship, because there can be this sense of them either being spaced out or not being able to show up. And like, just forewarning, knowing that Saturn is going to reach a square with that next year, it's like it could be another whole year and then you could be back to square one with this person. So it could be a whole year in the making and then it's like, oh, it's not. They're still not getting it. Here comes Mars back into his 7th house because he's a Gemini descendant. That makes me feel also like if there's been a bit of a back and forth with you guys, there's a need to like really kind of get on with it. Your Jupiter sitting in his 4th house, I think also makes things really easy for him to feel comfortable and like he can just kind of come back to you. And there may need to be a sense of you explaining to him, like, you can't just hide out and not communicate, you know, what's going on. You need to be forthcoming about some things. So I don't know what you guys are experiencing, but I think you're doing everything that you can, right? You're doing literally everything that you can, but he needs to do more. And we've got 2 Libras here, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Pluto. And then you've got, you know, Sun, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Pluto, Uranus. Like, can you guys make a decision ever? I'm joking. I have a Libra rising 7th house moon, so I know what that's like. But there can be a sense of like, I don't know, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And like, nobody really wants to be the person who's going to go, I think I need to do this and I think you need to do that. And like, let's, you know, like, let's reconnect in like a month. Like, that may need to happen, right? So that way both parties are becoming very clear about what they need. And Pluto's coming into an opposition with his Mars, right? And it's also going to square Jupiter and Taurus. Holy cow. That's a really big energy for his chart. It's not just all of the Saturn on the South Node. I'm looking at the Pluto-Mars stuff. And that's Pluto moving through his whole sign 3rd house of communication, opposing Mars, where it's like he needs to start becoming very clear about, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I'm doing. It's like less talk, more action, you know? I feel like you're doing everything that you can. And I would say that probably a lot of what's hitting him is also Uranus opposed his Uranus and his moon. That does seem to kind of materialize as changes in the way that he handles things emotionally. It's like very clear with Uranus and his moon in conjunction. He can be really tuned in and emotionally aware, but there's also this sense of like, he didn't have a lot of emotional stability growing up with his mom. I mean, obviously Neptune on his ascendant, but then when you throw the moon Uranus in the 8th house, like, did he lose his mom? Like, does he have this fear of like getting too close to a woman? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. It's because it's behind his ascendant. So what's happening is Uranus is moving through his 6th house, opposing his natal Uranus and his moon, and it could manifest as thyroid problems, digestional issues, health issues, dietary things going on, like all kinds of health stuff. If he doesn't fix it, if he doesn't work on that, he's going to have health and nervous system stuff that's just going to go amok. And he's in his Uranus opposition. So he really needs to go and see a good herbalist with that in his 6th house. He also needs to, there it is, 6th house addictions. He needs to get that shit together. Scorpio moons love toxic stuff. It's their favorite. And look at his Chiron and his Vesta, right in an opposition. So that tells me that there's some issues where he'll over-nurture things. And yeah, he's got Neptune in his 12th, but it's conjunct his ascendant. 2 degrees. He likes to drink. In 1 year's time, and I'm just saying this lovingly because I'm seeing clients who are going through this. In 1 year's time, when Saturn comes into a square with his natal Neptune and also with his descendant, somebody might be like, I'm not living with you. I'm moving out. I'm out. You're depressed. I can't deal with this. Like, it could really be a problem. So he wants to be hitting it head on now, right? Right now. And as a Libra, right? Really for him though, if he's within the first 7 degrees, Saturn's coming into Pisces and it's going to quincunx his sun, which basically means he's going to start losing friends over it. He's not going to have as many people who are there to support him. He's going to start to see this like dwindling effect that's going on. He's like, well, I don't know what makes me happy anymore. And I hate to say it, but that is kind of the purpose of Saturn getting ready to go through the 4th house, is even if you're living with a bunch of people, you're going to feel alone. So he really has to get down to really working with like the mom issues and working through some of that stuff. And I think it's a matter of being like, I can help make these connections and help you do this, but I'm not going to hold your hand and make you do it, right? It's, the oppositions to his moon. Do you know anything about abuse when he was a kid? Because it's in his 12th house. Because, I mean, his 18 and 20 degrees, there's some kind of, there's something there, and I feel like it would probably be good for him to go and talk to somebody about that and do like some trauma therapy. Yeah, well, usually the moon Uranus in Scorpio is. Or mom went through some kind of abuse and he was aware of it. Something like that happened. And he may need to go through trauma therapy, or he may do really well with like doing like past life regression or even hypnosis to kind of work on that subconscious level, because it's behind his ascendant, you know? And so I would say encourage him to do that. If not, he may respond very well to working with herbs and seeing an acupuncturist. That'll do wonders if you have those Scorpio placements, to start kind of regulating the body a little bit better. Look to anytime Saturn is sitting right around that 7 degrees, you're going to start to see whether or not it's time for you to take space. I would say don't take it personally, because I can see in his chart when it's happening, it's just about him working through his home and his family stuff, in hopes that if he does the work this year, he's going to be able to show up much better next year. But next year, when Saturn hits around 10, 11, it's going to square his south node. And if he's not ready to cohabitate with another person, if he's still in his mess, be very, very careful there. But yeah, you guys have some kind of karma there. It's like, with your Jupiter on the south node, he's like, that's the answer. You know, she's going to fix it. And you can help, but you can't do it. And his Jupiter's on your ascendant. So you guys really do open up each other's perspectives. You're really, you know, it's a positive energy to kind of be around. But he has to get his shit together, you know? Don't be too overly understanding with all that, Libra. That's the best advice I can give you. Because it's one thing to understand and talk them through it. It's another thing to be like, I'm constantly putting things on back burner. Because you got so many things going into your 10th house that relationship stuff can really kind of bog you down if you're not getting what you need. You can talk to him, right? Of course, with Saturn in the trine, you can talk to him. But like, there's so much great stuff happening with your career that you cannot get bogged down with all of that stuff. And Jupiter Uranus in the 10th is also going to be about you being like, I want to be in a relationship with somebody who like wants to take on the world together, and I want everybody to know we're together, and like, I need you to have it in order. So you can keep doing what you're doing and kind of being there for him, but he's pretty much got about a year. Hopefully that's helpful. That's a tough situation. I hope he gets some help. That's really difficult. You're welcome. We got Gloria and then Lucas and Katie. Gloria, let's see. All right, Gloria. Gloria says, any advice about the energies currently in my chart? I've got my second Saturn return, Pluto square my second house. I believe this full moon affects my 7th house. The last new moon was conjunct my natal Saturn, so I'm winging it right now. Just going with the flow, but wanting to know where my main focus should be. Any help is appreciated. I plan to do a personal reading soon. Thanks in advance. Hopefully I can catch the reading. If not, I'll watch it later. Okay, cool. So I've got you here. Just want to double check, make sure this is right. 12/22/64. Yep, 10:50 a.m. in Littlefield, Texas. Okay, Aquarius rising. Saturn in Pisces, Moon in Leo, and Sun in Capricorn. Okay, yes, you do. So just a heads up, I use Placidus. You can use whole sign. So if you use whole sign, that's fine. Saturn would be second house, whole sign. So it's going to be about resources, self-esteem, you know, financial security, food and eating habits, especially because Saturn is your chart ruler. So I see a little bit of both. You know, if Saturn belongs to your whole sign second, you'll see those things, but being that it's in your Placidus first, it's about what boundaries you're initiating in regards to this stuff, right? What's challenging is that you do have Saturn in a square with Venus. So it's not just going to be your second Saturn return, it's going to be your second Saturn return that's going to be square Venus in your 10th house. So it's going to be possibly challenges revolving around, do I feel like I'm getting enough recognition? How are my relationships? Am I getting paid enough for what I'm doing work-wise? Am I not getting along with people at work? Am I not loving what I'm doing? Like, these can be things that can come up. Do not underestimate the support that you're getting from Saturn in other ways. So Saturn is sextile your sun several times this year, which is awesome. It means that the more that you're focusing on your goals and you're exercising boundaries and consistency, and your eyes are on the prize when it comes to really making your manifestations and your visions a reality, the better. stay active with friends and groups and other people who can kind of help support you with that sextile to your sun. I also am looking at how Saturn is going to be making some positive aspects with Jupiter. That's going to be moving into or further into your second house. So that makes me feel like through having more consistency and focusing on how you can better manage your resources, there is opportunities for growth. Okay, so it's not all that bad. Go back to like 1993 through 1996. Think about what happened the last time you had this transit. You will see some similarities, although it is obviously going to be very different because we got planets in different signs now. You've been getting kind of your butt kicked with Saturn on your ascendant because it's been square Neptune and in opposition to your moon. So there has been a sense of already some of this energy is working. If you follow whole signs, so Saturn in your first house, square Neptune in the 10th. Am I liking what I'm doing? Is it a part of my purpose? Saturn opposed your moon. Am I getting along with other people, particularly women? So either way, it's the same. I would say being that your Saturn is at 0 degrees, that's pretty prominent in my mind. Yeah, you had a new moon there. If you saw my new moon report, I talked about how important this new moon was because it was setting the stage basically over the next year. Every single time Saturn retrogrades or goes over that degree, which will be 3 separate times, it's reinforcing what intentions you've set. So I'm hoping with that new moon that you did something in regards to committing to yourself, focusing on your body. Saturn can be rigid. And there is a sense of it wanting to become stronger. So I wonder if it's also been about you going, I'm going to get up and I'm going to start, like going for walks in the morning, or I'm going to start getting up and meditating, or I'm going to really start my day with having a consistent, focus and series of goals or things that I'm doing that I'm just like executing and I'm committing to, just to make you feel like you have more, stability in your life. And it could be as simple as yoga. Saturn and yoga, are just like, they go together, right? That's what Saturn represents, of that sense of holding the form. But Pisces is liquid, right? So there's a sense of like, okay, I get up, I focus on my manifestations, on my meditation. I sit there and I am dead focused on my meditation for 15 minutes every morning. That's something you could do. You could do light weightlifting, right? If you're having issues with the body, which is possible because I can see you also have Chiron in the first house, there is a sense of wanting to heal the body in a spiritual sense. So it can be sound baths, it can be meditation, it can be soaking, it can be energy healing, whatever. Healing self-esteem issues can be something else that can come up if you abide by the Saturn in the whole sign second house. I wonder if there's like a sense of not connecting your value to numbers in a bank account. There can also be a sense of just developing like a healthier relationship with food. And I would say Pisces is about liquids and Saturn is about time. So I want to make sure that you're staying hydrated, get that big water bottle, make sure that you're drinking your water throughout the day, look into sea minerals. This is something I'm putting together a video on right now about Saturn and Pisces. I'm going to be doing a video this week, so you'll see it come out. But I would say like sea supplements, like do you need to be taking, iodine? Do you need to be taking sea kelp or, other sea minerals, adding a little bit of mineral salt to your water or while you're cooking? Sea moss is something that I've been researching, and I'm going to start taking that because apparently it's got like all these awesome benefits, almost all of the vitamins and minerals that you need. Very Pisces, right? So think about ways that you can incorporate that maybe into your diet. Maybe you decide that you want to do fasting and you want to replace one meal a day with like a high protein shake, right? I'm not a doctor or dietitian, but I can think back to when I had Saturn transits, and I have Saturn conjunct Neptune natally. And I have found that there needs to be this combination of not just solid foods, but liquid foods and fasting, and also doing teas or working with supplements and spiritual balance. That's how you find that mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spirit balance altogether. So all the supporting factors, I think, to your sun is also going to positively enhance your relationship with others. And also it's going to help you get closer to your goals. You'll have 3 times that Saturn is going to sit within these degrees. And actually, when it goes direct in the fall, it's going to go direct at 0 degree. And I would imagine that that's right around the time that you're like, okay, great, I've got this, and I'm seeing the results that I've been really focusing on, in preparation, knowing that next year Saturn's going to come into conjunction with Chiron. And I wonder if you learn modalities about healing yourself, which becomes so important, because then Saturn's going to hit your Chiron and you were already prepared and you know how to navigate some of these financial challenges, some of these self-esteem challenges, some of these health challenges, and then Saturn's going to square the nodes. And I think it may be that you're sharing some of this information about healing with other people, right? You might share it with younger people, you might share it with your kids, you might, make that into like a hobby. Like there might be something like that you end up doing with that. So wonderful. I think also just this Jupiter-Chiron conjunction that's setting up, a lot of people are going to start learning about self-healing, and that nobody's going to save us. Nobody's out there teaching you like how to eat well. Nobody's teaching you how to not rely on medication. Like nobody's telling you that like what to do basically to take care of your body. Nobody's going to do it unless you do it for yourself. So huge wake up call for a lot of people right now. And I think you've already been through this transit before. So I'm confident that you're going to kind of go through this pretty easily with flying colors. But remember that 0 degrees is the purest form of the sign. It's just kind of getting its sea legs, especially in Pisces. So cut yourself a little bit of slack, and know that if you've already been doing the work while Saturn was on your ascendant, you're going to fare so much better. And it may be worth, I don't know if you know how to look at charts, but it may be worth actually casting the moment of the Saturn return. There's going to be 3. So I would look at the final one. You can usually go into like astro.com, and I think you can run a report and see when the actual retrogrades will be. Find the last one that's going to happen in the fall. And that's the one that I would look at. You can cast that chart and it'll show you exactly where Saturn, where it lands. But if you want the day, I'll give you the day, because that might be helpful, because it's going to be very soon. So when it hits 0 and 29 minutes, it looks like that's going to be so, here we go. Look at how cool this is. March 11th, 2023. Okay. So according to this, right when it hits, the MC, which is the midheaven of the chart, is conjunct your ascendant. Okay. The IC is conjunct your 7th house. So everything shifts. It's basically saying that it's bringing your Saturn and your Chiron to the 10th house. So it's healing issues in regards to your career or your responsibility or who you are out in the world. And it may talk about you realizing that some situations at work aren't benefiting your health, or some things that you're changing in regards to you and your body and your goals is shifting what you're doing out in the world. It's one or the other. Pay attention on this day. This is a very significant day, okay? Because you've got the moon conjunct the south node, trine your Saturn, saying we're clearing something out. You've got Mars on your north node, really amping you up and getting you really focused on going towards your goals and the direction for your life. And you've got Venus on the descendant. So I have a feeling this is going to be about encouraging or sharing with other people some of the things that you've learned about healing yourself. That's the very first one. You're going to have more that's going to be later in the fall, but pay attention to this day. This will be the first time that you're going to have it, and you'll start to see signs of what your Saturn return is going to be about. And I would say also, if you can do laps in a pool with Saturn and Pisces, because we're going to have Saturn and Pisces, we're going to have Mars and Cancer, that would be really wonderful for you. Really focusing on that form, right? And if it's not, make sure you have good form when you're meditating. Maybe get like one of those meditation mats, like or the stands that focuses on the posture, so you make sure that you have really good form when you're meditating, or you're just setting that timer and you're doing it regularly. That's how you want to work with Saturn. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful, and yeah, keep us updated. Good luck. Saturn returns are not so fun when you're in the middle of it, but when you come out the other side, you're like, okay, I learned something, you've already had one. All right, so we've got Lucas, Katie, Alana, and this is where I get to plug people in who I don't have. So it shouldn't take too long because a lot of you guys I already have in here. So let me plug Lucas in. (8:35 p.m.) Oh yeah, Christine, I've got you. I will plug you in next. Can you send me your info, please? And then, let me see, I'm pretty sure I have Katie. Yep, and then Alana, I'm positive I have you. Yep. Stephanie. June 693. Gotta put you in. (4:50 p.m.) (5, 16, 86). All right, just about done. Thank you, Christine. Oh, cool. Let me see. Are you in here? I might still have you then. Yes, I do. I have you. Okay, cool. So I'm going to take Christine, Lucas, Katie, Alana, Wendy, Stephanie, and then we'll get going. Perfect. Thank you guys for your patience. All right, Christine, I've got you here. Sag rising, sun in Aries, moon in Aquarius. Do you want me to talk about the full moon, or do you have a particular question for me? Let me know. What do you got going on here? Ooh, Jupiter's on your sun. How is that going? Your sun's intercepted. Okay. Okay, so you're going to hear for the Virgo full moon that it's really good for career for Sag rising, right? Because it's the whole sign 10th house. You may not really start to feel the effects of that until the next full moon. So make a mental note of the full moon that's going to be in Libra at some point in the first week or so. I think it's going to be well, no, wait, that'll be the end. Will it? No, it'll be the beginning of April. I'm currently a nurse and I'm not having a great time. Okay, so Venus rules your 10th house of career. You have got Venus in Taurus in your 5th house. And it looks like Jupiter is going to come into conjunction with that pretty soon. So I would say it's a combination of the full moon that we're going to see in Libra, and then also when Jupiter, which is your chart lord, starts coming into conjunction with Venus, you're going to see opportunities for change at work. That's looking more like right around June, July of 2023. Now, Venus rules the 10th house of partnerships. It does suggest that you may be brought in to work with someone new. The truth is for Sag rising, I mean, with Jupiter and Uranus being in your 6th house this year and next year, there isn't going to be a shortage of work. It could be work that's more contractual. It can be kind of like spontaneous and sudden. You're traveling, you're going places. So I wonder if you would be open to travel nursing. I also think with Jupiter coming into conjunction with your Venus at a 4, that it does talk about the possibility of trying to do some work from home or trying to do like house calls or home calls. I wonder if this is going to be about you trying to do work where you're talking to people like with telemedicine. You could do, yes, I would say if you're going to do cosmetology, because you have Venus in the 5th, it makes me feel like you want to make sure that you have those skills first. Okay, so like, I don't know if you're automatically just going to quit nursing and then go to cosmetology school and then do that for a year. I think you will do a little bit of both. But aesthetic nursing would be a great combination, especially because you have Venus in Taurus. So I do think that you would have a good eye for it. The problem is that you've got your moon in Aquarius, which is much more scientific in the 2nd, and it's in a square to the moon, in a square to Venus. So there's some sense of like how I make money, which makes sense logically, but then what I would rather be doing. And it could also be the same experience when you try to do aesthetic stuff. You might realize like, I don't like the inconsistency of the finances. That's what I'm saying. Don't completely quit nursing or put that, you know, to the side until you really are sure that you like what you're potentially going to be going into. Single mom with daycare, it's been a huge struggle for me. Yeah. So make sure that you like it. Also, Jupiter coming into conjunction with Venus. Do you have a daughter? Because you have Venus in the 5th. You have Sun conjunct as well, so it's kind of hard to tell. But generally speaking, Jupiter coming into conjunction with Venus does seem to suggest that there is something you can start doing on the side to make extra money that may start as a hustle, but it may materialize as a full-blown thing next year. Oh, you have a Sun. Okay. So Venus would then be your pleasure projects. So I'm wondering, like, are you open to going and taking courses or classes to get certified to be able to do medical type nursing stuff? Perhaps if you have a kid, obviously not being, you know, travel nursing can be a little complex, but I have a couple ideas. One would be with Jupiter and your North Node and Pluto all being in Scorpio. How do you feel about possibly like working and doing private nursing for people who are undergoing like surgical procedures? Like let's say somebody goes and they get some plastic surgery done and they need somebody to change bandages, work with them, help take care of them, you know, post-operative care and make sure that they're covered, right? You could make a lot of money with this chart doing that because technically the oppositions in Scorpio is going to be about surgical procedures. Or you may go in the direction of wanting to learn more about skin and skin care. And yeah, I think you would do really, really well with that. You could also go into like skincare. And you know, this would be like probably working with natural things that might be like peels and stuff like that. The Aquarius in you might like the idea of like currents and frequencies and being able to go and like do all kinds of like, you know, medical type aesthetic work to the face that might be anti-aging. The Aries in you is going to like the idea of working with lasers and things like that. But like, if this were me, I would be like, cool, how can you be like a companion aid for people who just got prosthetic work done or they just, you know, got kind of like cut up and they need somebody to kind of help them in their home or they need somebody to kind of stay with them while they're, you know, in recovery. You can make a lot of money doing that, especially with Saturn coming into conjunction with Mars and Mercury. That's literally your bread and butter would be next year, right? And I don't think it would be limited to just that. I mean, being that it's in Pisces, you may also see that there's people who are going to be going through at-home detoxes, rehab, people who are sick at home, who could also need home care. Really, the list goes on, but if you want to go at this more from the aesthetic standpoint, that I would say maybe it's starting there and then branching out and seeing if you would want to do more. I don't really see you as somebody who, I'm not going to say you can't do injecting because you have your 7th house Lord conjunct Mars, so I could see that, but you have Mars and Mercury square the nodes, excuse me, not the nodes, square your ascendant and your descendant. So I would go more in the direction of peels, lasers, permanent makeup, post-operative care, and possibly even like talking to people about products and things that they can use for beauty purposes that they may need prescriptions and stuff for. That's something else that you could do. When you turn 33, okay, right now you're kind of going through some transits that's about figuring out what's going to make you happy and what you want to be doing work-wise. But as you get closer to 33, your 10th house annual perfection is going to kick in. And that's where I think you're going to start seeing that you're doing something more consistently and you're being able to do it closer to home, where you're going to feel like you have the ability to run the business from home and kind of come and go as you please, you know? But right now, if you want to make a move, then while Jupiter and the North Node are conjuncting your Venus, now is the time to go and get those skills. So I would look at what do you need that's going to, you know, be complementary to what you already have as a nurse to be able to go and get into some of these fields. And like, you could totally work for yourself. If you're a Sag rising and you're a Sun in Aries, you could definitely run your own business if that's what you wanted to do. But if you want to get more into working with businesses and things that are going to be able to give you clients or be able to kind of do work for like a, you know, a medical spa, then start doing the training. Look into the training in April and May. That's what I would recommend doing. And see, you know, if you can go and do some extra training on post-operative care, you may be able to be somebody who works in collaboration with plastic surgeons and stuff. They might be able to recommend you for, you know, somebody who may be able to come in and do home care, and it would be so easy for you to do that, especially if it's in an area where there's a lot of people who are doing that. I know people who travel and they do that. I have clients that are nurses that will travel for post-operative care, and they'll get paid like $1,500 just to like fly to Miami. Somebody gets like their butt done or whatever, and then they, you know, pay for their flight. They stay with them for like a week. They take care of them and they come home. It's like crazy. Obviously, that can be harder if you have a kid, but if you can do it close by with this chart, it would work. You would just really start to see it unfold next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck. You're on the right path. I think the fact that you've got the nursing side done already is only going to help enhance, and you're coming into your Saturn's return. So being that it's in your third, it's about what you're learning, you know? Good luck. We got Lucas and then Katie and Alana. Thank you guys for being patient. Lucas says, can you help me understand the yod that points to my moon in the second house? Sure. You mean the one that's about to be activated with Pluto? Okay, so I like questions like this. I wish I had my little pen. So basically when you have a yod, you have a sextile, right? So what he's referencing is the sextile between Venus in Cancer in his 7th and Jupiter in Virgo in his 9th. And both Virgo and Cancer quincunx the moon. So essentially when you have a sextile, these are free-flowing energies, right? They work well together. So for example, Venus in Cancer in the 12th house. Excuse me, I'm seeing the 12 degrees. In the 7th house, in a sextile to Jupiter. So Venus and Jupiter, right, the benefics, they're sextiling each other. They're going to support each other. So it tells me that you have the blessings of Venus in the 7th, relationships, partners maybe, women who come into your life, conjunct Mercury, who talk to you, who communicate with you, who teach you things, and it sextiles your Jupiter. So it says that you have people that come into your life that change your philosophy on relationships, or they change the way that you look at culture, or they change the way that you look at education, or they enhance your belief system. Specifically though, if we look at this from whole sign, that's in your 8th house and it goes to your 10th. So that represents other people's ideas, involvement, you being with them, you being financially or intimately tied to them changes the direction of where you go with your career, right? But they do not mesh well with Aquarius. A quincunx means those two signs, they have nothing in common with Aquarius. But when that is within the same degree, so Aquarius at 3 degrees, Jupiter at 2 degrees, Venus and Mercury at 0 and 3 degrees, it's saying even though they have nothing in common, they're both pointing to that sextile, right? Or vice versa. Aquarius moon's pointing to that sextile. So the focal point of the yod becomes the moon. Okay, so what is the moon? The moon represents cycles, changes, like things that fluctuate, right? Intuition, subconscious, women. In traditional astrology, this was seen as fortune, and it's in the second house. So the moon in the second house, comfortable there. It does represent financial needs. It represents security, the senses, and the moon is the ruler of your 8th house. So there's something that's tying in to that 8th house again, saying you use your intuition and your ability to, I think, get in deep with other people, whether this is financially, emotionally, sexually, whatever, and really have a lot of depth. And that's where you, I think, really find the enrichment of your relationships and how it really opens things up. For example, do you find that there's lots of opportunities for you to have relationships with people who are very culturally diverse or spiritually diverse or religiously diverse? Do they have a tendency to have been well-traveled or well-educated, or they're from other places or different backgrounds? Is there anything like that going on? That's kind of the feeling that I get. How it may give you more insight in terms of taste and design, or it helps you appreciate beauty more because you might see more variety of these types of partners. It may also indicate that they bring you something of value, right? Relationships teach you something, literally or figuratively, and they may somehow positively influence your finances, because you've got the 8th house lord is the focal point of the yod in your 2nd house. So you meet people, they teach you something, you grow in the relationship, they inspire you, they encourage you to travel, they encourage you to invest more in your education, to grow where you're going with your career, that kind of stuff. But the moon is a very interesting planet to have as the focal point of the yod, because it also tells me that that fluctuation of your finances, which can happen if you have the moon in the 2nd house, dramatically affects the relationships, and it dramatically affects also just like your belief system. So there can be periods of time where you're like down on your luck. Somebody comes into your life and they kind of turn everything upside down, and they inspire you, or they push you, or they end up being your muse, and then all of a sudden your fortune changes. Same thing kind of goes with traveling. You can go through periods of time where you're traveling, or you meet a teacher or a mentor, or you're learning something new, and then all of a sudden that has some fateful effect on your finances, right? So the moon being there is an interesting placement. I think that that seems to be one of the only real aspects that you have with your moon. I'm trying to see another aspect. I don't see anything else. So that's funky. So the only aspect that you have with your moon, which is so important because it represents the emotional state, is an inconjunct. Very interesting. Do you mind me asking, so if you think back to 2020, going into 2021, when Saturn hit your moon and it quincunxed and it inconjunct your planets in your 7th and your 9th house, did that materialize as having some challenges in regards to resources or joint resources, which then pushed you to learn how to communicate a little bit more with other people in other places, or focus on defining relationships without a focus on physical or tangible things? Like, did the focus become more on the emotional side of relationships, or what you're learning from other people, not what you can buy, what you're eating, what you're wearing? Do you feel like it brought like another kind of lesson in regards to relationships and making them more so like real and not so physically based? That's the interpretation I would have. So what you experienced basically in the end of 2020, the beginning of 2021, that should show you what the effect is in regards to that yod. But yeah, Mercury and Jupiter are almost exactly the focal point there. No resources, but a relationship ended. It was really hard. So it showed you that the quincunx to the planets in the 7th house was, okay, I'm going through a difficult emotional time. I need to connect. Were they giving you something fulfilling or of value? No, the relationship ended. It inconjunct your Jupiter. but it should have opened you up to new people, new places, new lessons, and also encouraged you to focus more on your 9th house, your spirituality, your belief systems, what directions you are going in. And it should have totally got you thinking more about, you know, why am I here? What am I learning? What is my responsibility? How can I be more in tune with building my self-esteem? And it should have opened the door to you kind of rediscovering who you are, right? Because the 9th house is our philosophy. It's the bigger picture of life. Very interesting. I don't think too many times have I seen the moon be a focal point of a yod and it's not aspected anywhere else in the chart. So when planets go through there, it's going to be very significant. So you want to kind of prepare because Pluto's coming for that degree over the next couple years. And when that quincunxes your Mercury, Venus, and your Jupiter, and Pluto is the 12th house lord, it may materialize as not only the traditional textbook Moon Pluto changes and transformations with women or your home or your mother, but it's also, I think, going to be a time where you're going to be able to kind of tap into your subconscious more and be able to start showing different sides of yourself, your private feelings and thoughts, and you might become really, really, really intuitive and start sharing some of this with other people, and you might start doing some like writing because that's belonging to your whole side third, which you might consider publishing. It might push you to focus on publishing and personal transformations that you're going through where you're going to teach or publish others for others, if that makes sense. Hopefully that's helpful. That was a good question. Hopefully you've worked through the healing stuff since that difficult time in 2021. We've got Katie, Alana, and then Wendy. Let's see. Katie, 19, there we go. Cool. All right. Katie says, as a Pisces rising and Aries intercepted, I want to know what these upcoming transits will do to me. Anything I should be aware of when it comes to either relationships or career, whatever feels more significant. Thank you. I love you too. Okay, so we've got another great question. So she's asking about her interceptions. So if you look at her first house, it starts with Pisces, and the second house begins with Taurus. So Aries is swallowed up in the first and Libra is swallowed up in the 7th. So this is a much easier way to explain this because it's in the houses that these two signs rule. So let's talk a little bit about Aries and Libra. Okay, Aries and Libra. Mars and Venus, right? So Aries is action, me, my drive, where I'm going, you know, just like putting the pedal to the metal, right? So passion, anger, vitality, all that stuff. Libra, others, us, together, we, companionship, Venus, right? So where we take personal actions and then we meet with others. When you have a sign intercepted, it basically means that that is your blind spot, right? So if you've got Aries, Libra intercepted, knowing the difference between where I start and you begin is challenging. Aries being in the first house intercepted does say that you sometimes struggle or you find it challenging to know when to get started or how to get started or how to initiate, or you know, you feel like you're just spending so much time waiting. Pisces rising, you guys don't do anything unless it feels like the right time. Like I know so many Pisces rising personally that like, these are people that could wait until 1 o'clock in the morning the day before a project is due. And they're like, okay, now's the time. And then they get started on it. It's just like weird. So I think between Neptune on your ascendant and also the fact that you are experiencing Saturn coming into a square with Mars, which rules Aries, there's a sense of like not knowing when to start or questioning your intuition or questioning whether or not, you know, it's too late or it's too early, right? So you may have a difficult time knowing when to launch something or knowing when to go after something. You have Mars in the 10th, which is nice. You have Mars in a fire sign, which is great. But notice your Mars placement is also mirroring a lot of what I'm seeing. Mars squares the ascendant and the descendant by 10 degrees. It's enough. So that's saying like there can be a sense of being like, okay, I want to do all these things, but I don't really know. Like, do I do it now? No, I'm going to wait. So there's some indecisiveness. Intercepted Libra in the 7th is going to be talking about not knowing where to find partnerships or relationships or how to navigate relationships, right? Or where to find people. So here we go. We've got Venus being the ruler of Libra, and you have Venus also in Sag. Interesting. So the two planets that rule your interceptions are in the 10th house, which is very visible, and they're in the sign of Sag, which is passionate, quick moving, fearless, independent, out there, culturally diverse, teaching, training, all that fun stuff. So it's basically saying the way for you to find your way and really define who you are and also really figure out relationships is if you throw yourself out into the 10th house and say, let's focus on the career. Let's go out there and meet people. Let's go out into the world. Let's travel. Let's interact with other cultures. Let's learn about things. And the more that I'm learning about other people and the more that I'm seeing diversity, the better I'm going to understand myself and others. Because a Pisces rising is changeable. You guys will change your hairstyle, your hair color, your mood. Everything is just kind of like fluid. So I do think that if you're having a difficult time defining yourself, maybe it's about going out there and being like, how can I teach other people? How can I inspire other people? How can I lead other people? And you're going to be much more likely to find relationships that way as well. Being that Aries rules your whole sign second house of money, right? And it also rules your 7th house whole sign, your 8th house whole sign of joint resources, right? It also talks about making money in a way where there is a togetherness with someone else, right? So maybe you do need a partner at work. Maybe you do need somebody who's going to invest in your business before you launch it. Maybe you do need somebody who's going to help you manage it. So there is some sense of trying to figure some of that stuff out right now. I think when the eclipses hit, so many people, I'm teaching Astrology 201 right now, and I constantly have to like remind myself to like slow down and explain things to them. And so something that I've repeated several times is the way that I personally truly believe that Placidus is the way to go when you're making predictions is because I've seen it in real time. And this is going to be a good example. You just had the North Node move into your 1st house, and you just had the South Node move into your 7th house. So you're out of that messiness of the 2nd and the 8th house, thank God. Will you still feel some of the effects over the next year and a half when they're in Aries and Libra? Probably, but I don't think it's going to be as focused on finances as it's going to be more so focused on you, your action, your body, and other people, their issues, their energy, whatever. So you're seeing the actual nodes in the eclipses that are going to start taking place in your 1st and your 7th house. It's going to be really teaching you some of these lessons. I mean, you're going to have the North Node in your 1st house until it goes into Pisces. That's going to be until 2025. So while it's in a sign that's not intercepted, this is the best time for you right now to pay attention. Once it goes into Aries in July, you're not going to have as much support. So what is the North Node in Taurus in the 1st house? How do I physically feel? How am I showing up? What is comfortable? What feels good? How do I want to dress? How do I want to smell, right? Taurus. And then the South Node in Scorpio is, what do I notice about other people that I don't like, right? In the 7th. Like, where am I trying to detach from other people's negativity, right? When it goes into Libra, it's going to be, okay, am I really done with relationships from the past? Am I indecisive about other people? Are people from the past coming back? North Node in Aries in the 1st house. How am I taking initiative? How am I showing up for myself? So interceptions kind of act like blind spots. We don't always know how to work with that energy. But what is going to be really helpful is you got Jupiter in Aries right now. So Jupiter's in your 1st house. It's your chart ruler traditionally. It's trining your Mars, and it's also coming into a trine with Venus, which is basically saying if you are aware with the interception, which you are, and you're actively making changes on a personal level, and you're going out there and you're saying to people, do you want to partner on this with me? You know, do you want to travel with me? Do you want to, you know, read this book with me? Do you want to, you know, open a business with me? All of that energy with the trines to your Venus is like wonderful. I mean, I think you're going to see lots of opportunity to connect with people and really help open and expand and bring you, you know, new horizons. I guess all roads lead back to the 2 planets that rule those interceptions. So you really do need other people to help figure out where you need to go, whether it's partners, romantic partners, business partners, clients. Other people will help you kind of put those pieces together and figure it out, right? And you have your North Node and your Sun in the 11th house, so you know that this is true. It's just a matter of how do we get started, right? But let the Mars and Venus transits be your guide. That would be my advice. Definitely a little difficult with Neptune coming into conjunction with your ascendant, because you're going to experience, I don't know, there can be a sense of like transcendence. There can also be a sense of like the ego dissolving, or, you know, having an identity crisis. And it's going to come into a square with Venus. So that does tell me that you're going to be wanting to change or soften something about how you're showing up in the world, or you're feeling kind of hidden. And I would say don't get too comfortable there, because over the next few years, Saturn will sit into that conjunction as well. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Keep us updated. Let us know. I know you pop in here from time to time. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. I've got Alana, and then Wendy, and then Stephanie, and then Magic Lotus. All right, Alana. I don't know if you're still here, but it's nice to see you again. Let's take a look. Let's see, where is she? I know you're in here, I saw you. There she is. Alana says, I just got back from a big trip in Southeast Asia and I'm feeling lost and lonely. I turn 40 next week and I'm not sure what to do with myself or where I'm going. Any direction would be helpful. To add to my question, right before my trip, I had a falling out with a close friend. I'm discouraged about dating and about to turn 40. I'm not sure if I want to stay in Portland. I'm confused. Okay, I got you, girl. Thank you, Carrie and Wendy. I appreciate it. All right, wowzers. Every time I see that 29 degrees, I'm like, ah! So you got Saturn quincunx your ascendant right now. From one person going through that to the other, things feel a little uncomfortable right now, okay? So there can be a sense of feeling dissatisfied or kind of disgruntled with life when Saturn is in a quincunx to the ascendant, especially when it's a Virgo rising, because there's this sense of like, nothing's working out, nothing's working out, nothing's working out, crisis, right as Saturn's coming into your 6th house. So I would say be very mindful of the thought patterns there, because it can have an effect literally on your mental health or on your physical health as Saturn is entering into the 6th house, okay? You know, 40, obviously it's big because of the year, but in my mind, it's big because it represents the 5th house year. And that is all about, what do I love? What brings me joy? What brings me happiness? Who am I dating? You know, how do I feel about children? How do I feel about pleasure? These are all going to be things that you're going to be thinking about right when your birthday hits. From the next year on, Saturn will be your time lord, okay? Very, very, very important. As a whole sign Virgo rising, you really should read Libra because you're right there. But as a whole sign Virgo rising, if we go by annual perfections, 5th house Capricorn. So in your 5th house, whole sign, you have your South Node and your moon. And Saturn's getting ready to go into Pisces. So it's going to be about relationships and what you're doing with relationships. And I kind of feel inclined to tell you, it gets like really, really, really dark before the dawn. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now. You know, you've got Jupiter and Venus and Chiron all coming into conjunction with your Venus, which can make you feel really anxious and really antsy about relationships, especially if you feel like you don't have a relationship or you're not on good terms with friends or other people. This is the 7th house. Chiron's moving through there. So right now, Chiron in conjunction to Venus, really sensitive time. A lot of people are really sensitive and there's feelings of rejection. It's going to calm down a little bit, but for you personally, Chiron is still coming into conjunction with Venus. So there's this sense of being or feeling hurt as a result of rejection from female friends. Not so much men, because it's moving away from Mars. So that can be a really sensitive point. 2 is we've got a lot of 29s happening right now. Saturn is at 29, which represents a turning point and wrapping something up with your 5th house transit. Pluto is at 29, wrapping something up in regards to your 4th house transit. When Pluto goes into your 5th house, you have to, and I don't even need to tell you this because it's just going to happen naturally, you have to find something that you love, okay? It's what's going to happen. And in the 5th house, it's dating, it's pleasure, it's gambling, it's having fun, but it can also be about creating something. So what I'm watching is Saturn is coming into your 6th house. So this is about having more inspiration in your daily routine. It can mean getting a pet. It can mean making the decision to, start going to art classes, dance classes, meditation classes. It can mean that you're focusing more on your mental or your emotional health and your wellness. I think for a 5th house year, watching your Saturn transits are going to be really interesting because Saturn is going into your whole sign 7. So it's very clear that relationships are going to be a theme for you throughout this next annual year. So until spring of 2024. You want to watch when there's conjunctions to Saturn. Equally, you want to pay attention to what's going on with your natal Saturn. And with your natal Saturn, the South Node's coming into conjunction with Saturn. Hardness, stiffness, right? Unhappiness, or feeling agitated or feeling like rejected. So right now is a great time to just let it all go. You're going to see this month, really until July, the South Node and Saturn will come together. And then the South Node's going to sit on your Pluto, and that'll be in July, and then things are going to kind of start to clear. But even with that clearing, Pluto is sitting technically in your whole sign 5th, and it's squaring your natal Pluto and the nodes, which is saying clear, transform, heal the heart, detox, purge. I think of Pluto in Capricorn is like all the heavy toxicity that needs to be let go. It is in your 4th house, so it does have some connections to home, family, karma, family ties, living situation. So you kind of popping in and being like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to stay in Portland makes me kind of feel like probably what's going to arise this summer is this realization that's like, I got to go. I got to leave where I'm living. This is not working for me. Or I have to let go of the past, or I have to finally deal with some deep-seated emotional or family or past related things. When you come out the other side of that, when these transits start to ease up at the end of summer, I have a feeling with both Saturn in your whole sign 7th and also transits that are going on in your 7th house with the nodes, a new person, a new friend, a new opportunity, all these people are going to start popping in, but you got to kind of make space for it right now. This is some tough stuff. This is not easy. There is a need to really reset the mindset. There is also, I think, some challenges coming up with Neptune square Neptune, and with Neptune conjunct your 4th house, there's a sense of where is home, where is family, where are my roots? And then as Neptune's coming to your 7th house, there's like, okay, but where's relationships? Where are partners? And it doesn't mean you're doomed for life. It just means that you're learning to define your life and your happiness not based off of other people. Right? Because as Neptune gets closer and closer to your 7th house, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say you can't rely on people, but you cannot base your security or your value on others. 5th house year, generally we find someone or something we fall in love with. It can be a year where it's a new hobby, but it's usually generally a person. And I think in your case, with the moon being there, it very likely could be a person. It could be a younger person. 6th house year, which you're going to have next year. It's a lot about organizing and getting healthy and making, scheduling changes. And then you're going to see in 2025, you're in your 7th house year, which is all about relationships. I know in that year when Saturn shows up, that's going to be a big turning point for you with Saturn and Neptune on the descendant, because it may be a time where you do decide you're ready to pick up and move to another state or do another, It could even be like another country, as crazy as that sounds, because this is a chart that wants travel. I would say, kind of in this order, really lean on these South Node transits. The second house is what you possess. So if you have Saturn and Pluto in your second house, it's letting go of anger and frustration and also karma pertaining to the past, and not focusing on what you lost, right? Because that Saturn Pluto is like, oh, I lost this relationship. I lost, this money. I lost this potential romantic connection. I mean, like there can be becoming super consumed with what you lost. I've been going through South Node transits in the second house. And I think the one thing that's been so like therapeutic for me has been like, I just want to give it away, because I know that I'm going to deal with this feeling of, oh, I lost this, this, and this. So I'm giving things away, like gave books away, donated clothes, gave stuff to friends, right? And I've just been kind of like, okay, let's just get rid of it, because I know that I was going to end up being like, okay, I lost these things, or I had this falling out with this friendship, and it's just been like clearing. Doing that really helps. And I'm excited for you, because I think that Saturn going into your 6th house is going to be you being so committed to creating more peace in your life that you're not going to put up with or accept anything less than that. So I would really recommend, as Saturn's coming into your 6th house, really make time for meditation. You have to. That, or you need to make time to be doing things that's going to better benefit your mental health. Mercury is there. So the question is, do you feel like you need better communication from your partners on an everyday basis or on a regular basis, or your friends? If so, then that's going to be the requirement. Otherwise, you're not going to stay connected to people. Do you need to have time every day or weekly to, disconnect, to go and do something that's going to be out in nature? Because Mercury rules your 12th and also your 11th house. Your 12th and your 1st house. Mercury in the sun is definitely going to be about mental health. It's definitely going to be about your routines. It's definitely going to be about your health. But Pisces doesn't want to have to feel like something is rigid, right? Saturn doesn't do so well in Pisces. So it's got to be something that you can do, that you can fall back on when you're starting to get these feelings that are kind of coming up, that's making you feel kind of heavy. So think of like Mercury related things. I mean, at a 3, journaling, walking. It could also be about listening to videos, listening to podcasts, stuff that's going to be able to be uplifting. Pisces is going to be about awareness and anything in regards to letting go. So I would be looking at stuff that's going to be teaching you about that. And then your sun is there too. So you really would benefit from having something creative that you can do every day. Whether it's dancing or it's painting or it's drawing or whatever of you, it doesn't matter what it is. You need to have something to break up some of those mental thought patterns, so you're not feeling like you're falling back into that. And at some point, especially right around the end of this year, it's going to be closer to like November, December, January, as planets are going through Capricorn, you're going to see like some of the most action, because that's when the 5th house is really going to get activated. And you might find by that time, I love this thing, I love this person. I've forgiven, this person from my childhood. I've, healed the inner child stuff, and things are going to get a whole lot easier. But I think a lot of this is the South Node transits in your 2nd. And I think it's also some of the Neptune squares. And I've talked to a lot of people from 1983 who are going through these transits. I've heard a lot of the same things. You guys were born with South Node conjunct Neptune. So that does tell me that you have some very strong Neptunian aspects connecting to your past life, where you have been alone, or you have been a vagabond, or you have been, even in other worlds, if you believe in that stuff. So there is a sense of, in this world, being like, why does it feel so lonely? Why can't I connect with other people? Like, why is everything so sensitive? When you realize that Neptune is repeating some of these same patterns, and you go deeper into the North Node, which is in Cancer, ruled by the moon, and you've got the moon in your whole sign 5th, it's what you do creatively to express that. If you have a way of being able to express that, this is going to be a whole lot easier to navigate. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's not my job. But if you have the North Node in Cancer and the ruler is the moon in the 5th house, lots of emotional labor having to work through stuff. But I also think it is about either having a creative business, having your own business, having a child, having something you can care for, that definitely opens this up big time. In spite of all that though, Jupiter hitting your Venus, the North Node hitting your Venus. Yeah. I think if that's what it is, Saturn says make the time. Mercury says bust out that notebook or that laptop. Just do it, you know? And with Jupiter and Uranus going into your 9th house, oh my gosh, the opportunities for publishing is like limitless. Good luck. Happy almost birthday. That's a big one. You're going to have a full moon around your birthday. That's huge. We've got Wendy and then Stephanie and Magic Lotus. Wendy, it's a late night, my dear. But it's not a school night, right? Or you probably work every day. You work, I've seen your chart. You stay up late. You have all those planets in the 12th house. There she is. Wendy says, I want love and money. Don't we all? All right, Wendy. Well, Mars is waking up. It's been in conjunction to Jupiter. So that's great. That does tell me there's been lots of opportunity for stuff behind the scenes. And you're getting ready to see Mars cross your ascendant here. So get ready, because that's all about action. So for Gemini rising, Mars rules your 11th house of others and your goals. And this makes me feel like pretty much from the first week of March on, there is a sense of just like, you're just like motivated. You're just running around, you're doing things, you're getting active. Now Mars is back online. It's coming out of a square with your Saturn. So it's like full steam ahead. Mid-March, there's going to be some squares. So be advised, it's similar to what we saw in October. Mars will be great on your ascendant, especially because it's trining your midheaven, but it's going to square Saturn and it's going to square a whole bunch of other planets that are going to be in Pisces. So there can be a sense of being like, I know where I'm going, but what are other people doing? And I would just say, just breathe. Planets being in Pisces is really great as a second house Cancer sun though, because it's all trining your sun. So it's saying communicate, communicate, communicate. Really focus on being able to get the point across, make sure that you're having meetings, double and triple check things, have people sign contracts, you'll be fine. That's how you push through some of this. COVID probably because of the Mars square Neptune, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get sick again. But I will say this, last year when we had like Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Neptune were in Pisces, that's part of why a lot of people got sick. I got sick too. Viruses is Pisces, okay? And so Mars square Neptune is a lot of people are traveling, people are getting sick. Now that you know that this aspect is coming up, just be more mindful, right? Especially with all those planets in the 10th house, because I've seen some Gemini risings who have been like, I'm so crazy busy, I'm all over the place, and I'm doing meetings, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I have lunch with somebody, and then they call me 2 days later and say they have COVID, and like now I'm freaked out. So maybe it's a matter of just communicating with people and just making sure if you hear somebody coughing on the phone or if you know that somebody's got the sniffles, I would be like doubling down on all of your, vitamins and all your minerals and stuff and just be really mindful. For you, health does rule Mars. So being that Mars is going to sit on your ascendant, sometimes, touch wood, when people have those transits, they're more prone to accidents, they're more prone to burns, they're more prone to fevers. It can happen. Having Mars on your ascendant or having Mars connected somehow to your 6th house can definitely bring that. But you're out of that energy come mid-March. And the toughest squares, I think, are actually going to be like the 14th through the 18th, and then you're in the clear. Money-wise, Mars is going into Cancer. So technically you'll start feeling the energy at the end of March. I don't think you're going to feel it until it's physically in your Placidus 2nd house. You said you got an unexpected promotion. That's wild. Mars enters your 2nd house around April 19th. Oh, hi, the day of the eclipse. So the eclipse ruled by Mars. Mars is coming into your 2nd house. Mars will be trining Saturn from the moment that it's in the 1st house. So it's saying it's stabilizing, the direction that you're taking with your career, your authority with trines to Saturn, making sure you're laying down the groundwork, like you're focusing on putting in all the work so you can see everything kind of become more solid. But I think the money is rolling in more so the 2nd half of April when Mars goes into your 2nd house, and that's going to be about making money, but it can be spending money too. Mars in the 2nd house, we're like, oh, I've got it, I'm going to spend it. But I don't think you're going to do that because it's going to sit on your sun and it's going to trine Saturn. So I feel like you're going to be like, I have it. I might spend a little bit of money on like going on a short trip here or put a little money into, you know, a move or put a little money into my car, but like nothing crazy. But money looks great the second half of April with Mars going through there in a trine to Saturn. You have Saturn in your 10th house now. It just recently moved there. So it has dipped into your 10th house. It will now stay there for the next like 2.5, 3 years. Your Saturn return won't be until next year. Saturn will square the nodes next year. Saturn will square your ascendant next year. This is a nice period right now with Saturn in your 10th, not screwing with anything else. That's like it's a good time to just focus on structure and focus on consistency. And you're also going to see Jupiter in your 11th house sextile Saturn. Meetings, training other people, networking with other people, connecting with people in different places. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love it. I also love Jupiter coming into Taurus and trining your moon. So yes, there is a lot of opportunity to be making more money and kind of bossing up. Probably the strongest earning period, though, is going to be about April through July. Okay, so that's really when you're going to see this kind of going down the most. It's also going to be really nice to see that Venus is coming into conjunction with Jupiter as well. So yeah, something about that end of April looks extra sweet for you. And it's kind of like a middle period because when you get into your full-blown second Saturn return next year, you have a very aspected Saturn. You know how this goes, right? Work stuff shows up. You have work opportunities, which is going to be a lot of work. It totally moves things around in regards to your schedule and also your home. And likely there is a change that happens with your home because of your work responsibilities. Think back to what happened over the 90s. You're going to see something similar next year. What I think is that you're trying to get things up and running this year. So next year you can feel like things are becoming more self-sufficient. And you're not always having to physically be there and you're making money. And like, yeah, you're still going to work and you're going to show up. But I think the Saturn in the 10th house in opposition to the 4th is being like, I'm doing the work so I can spend more time at home. I'm doing the work so I can focus more on, you know, my foundation or where I'm putting down roots or like, you know, being able to feel like I can focus on my private life and not be so consumed with work. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting looking at this. But so many Gemini risings are like, but I have to work. You know, there's so much work available or there's so much responsibility. So you're not gonna be able to get out of it, right? So enjoy this year, I guess, is my advice. And once you see Jupiter get into Taurus and once it starts trining your moon, because the moon rules your second house, girl, you're gonna, yeah, money looks really good for you over the summertime. Because it's going to start trining your moon. And this tells me you're going to be meeting with people who are foreigners or people who have money that's kind of stashed on the side that they're willing to invest. July. That is when you're going to start seeing that all go down. Love-wise, I mean, Jupiter going through your 11th house is just March, April, May. Socializing, meeting people, going out there, doing things like parties, getting together with other people. If friends invite you places, if friends say, hey, let's get out of town, let's do something, go. When your 7th house lord dips into the 12th, that's going to be more about meeting with people behind the scenes, romance with people who live in other places. You may meet foreigners, you may meet foreign bankers, foreign architects. You may also meet foreign, like I said, investors. And it's very possible that you're going to meet like pilots. I know that sounds weird, but because you have Sagittarius in your 7th and Jupiter's going into the 12th, it tells me that they may do work in travel or they go to airports a lot, or maybe they fly as a hobby. Maybe they happen to be like a commercial pilot. Look for something like that. You might see someone of that nature, especially because, yeah, you got Jupiter in the North Node in the 12th. And somebody who might speak another language. That's something else that I would look at with Jupiter in Gemini. They may be bilingual. And you need a really strong Jupiter transit to make love happen. Well, Jupiter trine your moon, yeah, that could happen. At least people who are generous. And on the flip side, you're going to have Jupiter that's also trining your natal Uranus and your Pluto. So that's basically saying meeting people, you know, who are powerfully connected work-wise, who may live in other places because your 4th house is their 10th house. There may be a sense of being a little bit more private. Like I could see you looking at this being like, oh, is it too good to be true? You know? And there's so much karma with Saturn in the 10th house of, you know, 10th house is your career, but it's their home. So I see a situation brewing where you might meet somebody, but this whole year is a little bit of like back and forth. And then next year is like, okay, who's going to move for who, right? Where are we ultimately going to land? Because we can't be doing the back and forth the way that we're doing it. So who's going to make a change? I imagine that conversation is going to come up quite a bit, especially around August and September during the retrograde. One other thing that I'm just seeing now also is that eclipse is pretty damn close to your Neptune. That's coming. There's going to be an eclipse in Scorpio around May 5th. And if I remember correctly, it's like 14 or 15 degrees. 15 degrees. So it's very close to your Neptune. The week surrounding around that particular eclipse, Wendy, just pay attention to your health. I'm not saying this to freak you out. I'm just letting you know. Having an eclipse really close to Neptune, and Neptune is connected to Pisces, and you've got Pisces intercepted in this chart. It can be about somebody at work getting sick, kind of foreshadowing what I was saying, or something about feeling a little under the weather. Scorpio can be about hormonal stuff, reproductive stuff, things that have to do with the bowels. Be very careful with drinking and like liquids and things like that. Sometimes I see those eclipses happen and somebody gets sick. Sometimes they get food poisoning. Just the week revolving around that, just take it easy, okay? Because you got an eclipse on your Neptune. We had one there, when was it? The eclipse in the spring of 2022. So it was in, right around the beginning of May. Did you get sick then? It was in opposition to it. Yeah, no Cinco de Drinko. Yeah, so just if you got sick around spring of last year, be careful with this one because there's some similar energy there. Okay? Keep me updated. Hopefully that's helpful. I've got Stephanie and Magic Lotus. Stephanie, do you have a question for me? Let me know. There she is. There we go. She was ready for it. She had her finger on the trigger finger. All right, so yes, there's a new romantic relationship for me this month, year. Oh, is there a new romantic relationship for me this month, year? And anything important this year aside from romantic relationships? Thank you. Okay, gotcha. Is that your dog? So cute. You're welcome, Wendy. So you are a Scorpio rising. Have you already looked at your chart? Do you know? Girl, you should be more concerned with your Saturn return. Look at you asking questions about relationships. Who do you think you are? I'm just kidding. So in regards to relationships, that's your 7th house and it's ruled by Venus and you've got some big stuff happening there, right? So you turn 30 in June and that's when you start a 7th house annual perfection year, which is relationships. So when your birthday hits in June, from June of 2023 to June of 2024, you need to be listening for Venus, okay? The Venus is your time lord, which is good. 7th house is where we meet other people. Before we even get into that though, you do have some stuff happening. One is you're getting ready to have your Venus return, and it looks like you're gonna have your Venus return in conjunction to Juno, and Juno is on your descendant. So that's already an indication. I didn't even cast your solar return, and I can see it's gonna be about relationships and partnerships for sure. Yeah, so watch what's going on around March 16th-ish when you have that Venus return. That's going to give you some omens about what can be coming. As a Scorpio rising, you're still having North Node eclipses in your 7th house. You're not going to see another eclipse in Taurus until October 28th-ish. So make a mental note sometime around Halloween this year. There's some big stuff happening with relationships because you're going to have a full moon lunar eclipse, which is great in Taurus, in your 7th house, conjunct Jupiter, your whole sign 5th house lord, which is about romance. You just have to make sure you don't get pregnant unless you're trying to do that, because that could happen. When do I see relationships happen? Jupiter transit the 7th house, the 7th house lord transit the 7th house, the North Node transit the 7th house, Uranus transit the 7th house. You're having all of that. And Saturn being in Pisces, it's still hanging out in your 4th house for the next year or so. So there is still a lot of working with emotions, working with the past, but Saturn is technically in Pisces, your whole sign 5th. So it's like wanting to find true love, wanting to figure out where you're living, where do you need to be living for a relationship? Is there going to be some conversation about what you're looking for in relationships? And I like, as a Scorpio rising, I mean, you're going to have Jupiter going into your 4th house sextile Saturn. So there's a sense of expanding relationships, talking about what you need. Right? And so it's kind of that weird, okay, I'm turning 30, maybe I should figure it out type of feeling. It's less about your age, it's just more your transits. So I've seen people who are 21 years old going through this. I've seen people who are 40 who are just kind of like, I want a real relationship. So really work with the beauty of Jupiter sextiling Saturn this year, because it's really going to help expand into that. I have a hunch that relationships are probably going to start picking up momentum pretty significantly once Venus enters into your 7th house. So that's going to be right around the second half of this month. 5th house is dating, going out, meeting people. The problem is you got a bunch of planets moving through there, conjunct Neptune, and you're like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm looking for, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Mercury will go retrograde in your 7th, and that'll be April going into May. You just need to make sure that you don't have any unfinished business with people from the past that you need to wrap up. This is a huge theme for Scorpio risings. It's been 2 years of like relationships can't expand until you deal with the past. You're going to see this even more when Jupiter goes into your 7th house in May and it immediately starts squaring Pluto, which means you can't be talking to people from the past. People can't be texting you, wasting your time. You need to delete old text messages, old phone numbers. Don't be following people on social media. If you're done with something, let it be done. Like really, really let it go. And then when Jupiter comes into Taurus, which will be in May, Jupiter is your 2nd house lord, and it's going to conjunct Venus. So it tells me that you're going to start meeting people who are going to bring more to the table, right? So Taurus in your 7th house is people who can be a little boring. They're stable, they're consistent, they smell good, they dress good, they're going to be creatures of habit, and Jupiter is just enhancing that. Jupiter can also be about wealth. So for a lot of Scorpio risings, Jupiter going into the 7th house means you might be meeting people who are a little bit more financially sound. So you might meet people who are like, I have a house, I am successful in my business, I got my ducks in a row, who are like really ready for like an adult relationship, right? And that's kind of, Scorpio risings like that. You've been kind of just getting your ass kicked all over town this last year. Saturn's been in opposition to your Mars, so you've been feeling kind of down and feeling really challenged in regards to where you're going with your career. Saturn's been squaring your Pluto in the 1st house, where you're realizing that you need to be the one to make all of the changes and pick yourself up by the bootstraps and go, maybe it's not just about other people, maybe it's about me, and maybe it's about emotional patterning, and maybe I need to be looking at people in other places, and you're kind of working through some of this stuff right now. Saturn in the 4th sucks. I'm not going to candy coat it. That's not an easy placement to have. It does indicate that there's some challenges from a young age, especially with a parent. And thankfully, it's in a trine to your ascendant, and it's in a sextile to Venus. So that makes me feel like maybe it's just this realization that you had to grow up fast, and you had a very different life than a lot of other people. And so there can be this sense of like having all your Scorpio rising armor on, and not letting other people in. So we want to focus on, as Saturn trines the ascendant, let's be open to change, right? Let's not assume everybody is out to get you, and really get ready, because the momentum of your relationships in the next 2 years is just going to be like so fast. As soon as Jupiter and Uranus are in your 7th house and it's opposing your Pluto, you're going to have people who are going to be like, I'm ready. What's wrong with you? Like, why are you being self-destructive? Or why are you acting up? Or like, you're going to hear a lot of this stuff. So the key here is to really embrace the Taurus archetype. As a Scorpio rising, you bring people in who want peace, or they're just very like lovable and they just want to like feed you and cuddle on you. And it can be disarming for some Scorpio risings, and then other Scorpio risings can be like, what's wrong with you? Like, how can you like me? And you can kind of push people away. So it's about learning not to do that. All that energy is going to try in your Capricorn. So it's also about communication. So what I like is that if you bring in somebody who's got some Taurus placements in their chart or some Scorpio placements in their chart, they're going to work very well with your astrology. I'm not going to tell you to go for those signs because you end up liking what you like, but that can be interesting. I think Capricorn's going to work well with the Scorpio. I think Taurus would work well with the Scorpio and the Capricorn, but I'm trying to be mindful that you have a lot of planets in fixed signs. So you might be really drawn to Tauruses or people who act like Tauruses, but they can also be challenging for you. Bottom line is this: once your birthday hits, Venus is your time lord, and Venus is going to go retrograde in the summertime, July and August. And that's important because it's going to go retrograde in your 10th house, which means there can be a sense of something changing about your status, right? So you can change jobs, but I think it's going to be about re-identifying as I was single, now I'm in a relationship, right? I, said I was never going to meet anybody, and I did. Something like that happens. And that's a loud retrograde because it's going to go retrograde and it's going to scatter all over the place, squaring Uranus in the 7th, squaring your natal Pluto. Holy cow. And it's going to retrograde in conjunction with your Mars. So it tells me if you have changes at work, it could lead to you meeting someone. It's also going to be a very interesting storyline about how you're changing the relationship with your career. All year until next June, Venus is your time lord. So something else you want to be watching is, like I said, the eclipse in October. And I would be watching when Venus gets back into a Venus-based sign. So that's not going to be until she's in Libra. That'll be another time to watch. That'll be in the fall. It's going to take her some time to catch up. There we go. Mid-November, she goes into Libra, so she's going to be a little bit happier there. And when all those planets move into Scorpio in your first house and it's opposing your 7th house, this is going to be very colorful because it's going to be about being like, yes, I am willing to meet this other person halfway. And it's going to square your Mars. Probably the biggest challenge I've seen for Scorpio risings, I've seen this a lot the last 2 years, is just you're meeting people who live in different places because of the Saturn square in the 4th house. Or people from the past come back. But if you're done with the past, then that's fine. Then you might be meeting people who are just moving or relocating or they're visiting. That can be something that happens. But because your Venus is at a 0 and it's in the 6th, you may be meeting somebody right when they get out of a relationship or vice versa. That can happen. You could also meet somebody through work because it's in the 6th house about coworkers. Now, specifically, your descendant is at a 4, so that does talk about the past or meeting people at home, or if somebody says, hey, come over, let's have dinner, or, we're having a big barbecue, or like whatever, like anything that's about tying people that you're meeting to a home, or like a family member setting you up, or somebody saying, oh, I want to set you up with my son. Listen to these things. These are all signs and keys that those might be indications that that person is getting ready to kind of come in. My guess is, though, is like October, November, it's on like Donkey Kong, between the transits in your 1st house opposing the 7th, asking you to really jump into this relationship with someone else, and the eclipse in your 7th, which I think is going to be particularly positive. And then finally, when Venus swings through all of these outer planets this year, going into the new year, that's going to be loud in January. I have a feeling you're moving. And then next year, when Jupiter hits Uranus around April, the biggest challenge is that you're going to have Jupiter, Uranus in your 7th, sextile Saturn and Mars in your 5th. You're either getting married or getting engaged because you're in love, or it's going to be like, oh, I'm pregnant, we're getting married. Because that's the sextile. So it can be one of the two things. Neptune rules your 5th. And you've got a sextile to your moon in Neptune. Yeah, you're probably gonna move right around the end of this year. If it's not right around the end of this year, the very beginning of the year. But you'll move because you're going to have Venus and Mars go through the third house. So try to meet people in other places. And being that you're in your Saturn return, lots of big stuff happens there, you know? Something about Saturn in the whole sign fifth. I've seen a lot of people like meet a true love when Saturn's in the fifth house, which is interesting. And so it's their whole sign. It's not going to physically be there until next spring, but it's getting close. But circle back, let me know. Very, very interesting stuff. It's going to get a lot easier now that you're not in all these oppositions and squares. It's going to get a lot easier. So you have a lot to look forward to. Taurus descendant, they always smell good. They dress well, right? You'll be able to tell. And there's some combination of like Taurus and Cancer because you've got Taurus, Venus, and you've got your descendant out of 4. Okay. Good luck. Last but not least, we've got Magic Lotus. You are the real MVP. Let me pull up your charts. All right, so she says, here we go. Astro reading. Will there be a real relationship in my life soon? How's money looking for my business this year? 25-degree Libra rising. Sun in Taurus, and your moon is in Leo. Will there be a relationship in my life soon? Oh, I don't know. What about that nodal return and that eclipse? Holy shit. Okay, so Venus rules your chart. Venus is going into your 7th. It's going to conjunct your north node, which is big. So I want you to pay attention to March 11th. March 11th through, let's say, April 25th. I know that's a big window, but that whole like month-ish. Because Venus is going to sit on the north node. Juno's going to sit on the north node. In your 7th house, you're going to have Venus, Uranus in the 7th. So you could suddenly meet somebody at the end of the month. And then you're going to have a 29-degree solar eclipse in Aries in your 7th house of relationships, planting a new seed for relationships on your north node. Some of the most important transits, I think, in a chart are when you have an eclipse on your north node or on an angle, right? So the north node is relating to the moon's nodes. 29 degrees is now or never, super Saturnian. It's about things that need to happen very quickly or suddenly before you go into the next sign. So your north node is ruled by Mars, and you've got Mars in the 9th. And you've got your natal Mars. It'll be your Mars opposition. So to me, it's about maybe traveling more, connecting with people in other places. And when this eclipse happens, Jupiter is going to come in and activate that degree. And Jupiter rules 3rd house, travel, short distance trips, communications by phone. So it tells me that right around after the eclipse, there might be like a little bit of traveling back and forth to see somebody, or a trip that prompts you meeting somebody or talking on the phone a lot. So end of March through May, it's kind of on. Then in July, you're going to have your nodal return. And this happens every 18 years. So it's very important. And this is when you have kind of like a hard realignment with destiny. So the North Node in Aries is passionate, action in regards to relationships with other people. And the North Node is the direction of where we're going for soul evolution. So go back, look at what happened in your life 18, 19 years ago, around 2002. Similar themes. Once again, when do I see relationships happen? Eclipses in the 7th house, North Node in the 7th house, Jupiter in the 7th house, Uranus in the 7th house. You have all those things. At the same time, it's all trining your moon. And you're going to see that trine for a while. Actually, like pretty much April through the summer, until the North Node's no longer, trining. And even then, the North Node's on your descendant. So, Mars has been retrograde. It's now coming back into conjunction with your Venus. So I'm wondering, have you connected with anybody from the past? Did you finally put something to rest and decide that you were done? Are you open to meeting people in other places? Are you trying to connect with people who are culturally different or in other cities or countries? And Mars has been in opposition to Uranus. So to me, it seems like, you know, there's been a sense of like not really knowing where to look or if you want to look, right? You've also got Saturn conjunct Juno, opposed Chiron. Did you already... I closed things out with a Gemini X for real. Good. So that's what that was about then. The retrograde was about kind of clearing that out. You know, I think with Chiron in opposition to Saturn and Juno, that does kind of suggest that it really isn't until after 30, after your Saturn return, there's going to be somebody who's going to come in. But once you've gone through a lot of like relationship experiences and you've really figured out what you want, you're here to learn about relationships. Your North Node's in the 7th. It is. It's just the challenge is that Mars rules the North Node, and you've got an exalted Mars in the 3rd, which means there is a sense of you being like, if you want to make this work, you're going to do the work. You're going to move. You're going to call. Like you have to hold other people accountable for making moves, right? And like not just telling you they're going to do something, make sure that they actually do it. But yeah, the eclipse is telling me that's going to happen, and that eclipse will play out over time. So anytime 29 degrees gets activated now, you're going to see more of that happen. So for example, when planets go through Libra in the fall and they start opposing that degree at the second half of October, it's bringing up more in regards to this. Well, what's going to happen? You're literally going to have an eclipse that's going to be still in your 7th house, conjunct Jupiter. So I see that as being like you're telling somebody they need to move to be closer to you, or that they need to be, you know, doing more work to facilitate having a life together. And then Saturn's going to come in conjunction with Jupiter next year. So you're looking to really like lay down the law and be like, this is what I want. Also, another situation, Saturn going into the 5th house, figuring out what you love and what you want. You're in Saturn square Saturn now. So this whole next year is kind of this first opening square since your Saturn return. And like really it's like depending on how this year goes, you're going to see how well you've learned your lesson from your first Saturn return. And at the same time, you have, you know, Uranus and Jupiter coming for a conjunction to your sun. What I like about this chart is it makes me feel like there's a lot of opportunity for you to meet another person and build with. That Taurus in the 8th house is like, let's work together, let's make money together, let's grow. And I think you're going to see the opportunity to really think about doing that in a very serious way over the summer. I would also do a little research into Pluto coming into conjunction with your IC. Because you're not just in Pluto square the nodes, which sucks. That's basically saying you have to change your home. You have to change something about your emotions. You have to change the past. It's got to be buried to focus on the future. But you're really going to be seeing that when Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's going to enter into your Placidus 4th, and it's going to immediately start squaring the nodes. That's over the summer. Take it back. You go back a little bit. There we go. It's going to immediately start squaring the nodes. So Jupiter in the North Node in the 7th house is your way out. It's like new people who come in. The North Node is what we don't know, what we don't see. Aries, ruled by Mars, Mars in Capricorn. Do you live near a military base? I'm going to make it very simple. When Pluto crosses the IC, one of several things happens. One, your house gets haunted, which is very common. 2, you may have a death in the family. I don't like saying that, but it's possible. And 3, there could be a really dramatic change in regards to your home where you may, you know, pick up, move, relocate. You grew up in a military base. Okay. Be careful with crime. I'm not saying that because you live in Chicago. Like Pluto in the 4th house is definitely crime, okay? And it can be about things that are potentially broken into or stolen because it's about your possessions. But there can be conflicts over, you know, somebody passing in the family and who gets what, or arguments over, you know, property. These things can happen. Just make sure that your space is safe. And I would also say with Pluto, in a square to the nodes, it's trying to push you out of your comfort zone where you're living and connecting with people in other places. Aries can be people who are really active, fit, or they're into like combat sports, but specifically because Mars is in Capricorn, which is about a sign that wears like military type stuff. I think you might meet somebody who is in the service. Personally, it's possible. Or you might meet somebody who works and they have to wear a uniform, an official uniform. That's how you'll know that it's them. Or they may have like a uniform that they wear every day. They have like the same thing that they like to wear every day. That could be another way of looking at it. But you have an exalted Mars, so it's about seeing who shows up. And now you're coming out of Neptune square Venus, so no more back and forth with the ex. Give it till, like I would say, the end of March through about, to about July. You'll see, somebody's going to show up. And then right when you get to the fall, you know, October, November, that's when you can kind of go, okay, I could see myself making this change. But Pluto will go in and out of this this IC, which is the most sensitive part of the chart. And it's going to get squared by Jupiter, and it's going to get squared by the node. So the most challenging thing is you're going to meet somebody who's going to say, hey, would you move? Would you, relocate? Do you want to come here? Can we stay at my house? They're going to try to get you out of the house more. And he may not currently be enlisted, but if somebody says, oh, I have a background in military, or I served, or I did this, just pay attention. It'll be something like that. Always when you have an exalted Mars ruling the 7th. For all you know, it could be somebody who wears a uniform at work, but they should have some kind of a uniform. Hopefully that's helpful. Keep me updated on what happens with that Pluto ingress. That's a wild one. There's too many aspects. And that's for everybody, right? So the Pluto square the nodes off the bat, Jupiter square Pluto. We're going to see April and May. It's just going to be like wild. Like everybody's going to have to be forced to do that Pluto work wherever Pluto is in their chart. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Thank you for tuning in, and everybody who's hung out here for a couple hours with us. I appreciate it. Tomorrow we'll have astro weather. Actually, no, not tomorrow. Sunday. Today's Friday. Sunday we have astro weather coming out. I already put the Virgo full moon out if you guys want to take a look at that. Those of you guys who have your Saturn return coming up, I'm going to do a video on that in this next week and start talking to you guys about what to expect and how to prepare for that. That's going to be cool. If you guys want, you can always come back, leave me comments on this, and let me know how things pan out. If you haven't already, please do give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. It really helps with the algorithm for this channel. Thank you so much for your support and for watching and spending your Friday night with me. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you guys like, join my memberships. And I will see you next week. Next Friday, we'll be doing live tarot, okay? I'll post the link. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.